Chapter 447. But Kang Taechu is still suppressing him. Miyamoto won't be able to hold on for long. A blue storm powerhouse asserted solemnly. Kang Taechu, you can't kill me. Miyamoto Genji's white clothes were stained with blood, like blooming plum blossoms. His hair was disheveled, his face was covered in blood, and his eyes were ruthless like a demon. He roared and slashed his sword toward Jiang Tian. Haha, I'll kill you until you're in despair. Jiang Tian laughed wildly. 2 streaks of black light shot out from his fingertips, piercing the sky with a shrill sound. Clang. Miyamoto Genji's 3-meter-long blade light was pierced by the black iron shuttle, shattering and exploding. The next moment Little Black's flying sword had circled behind him and slashed at his neck. Miyamoto Genkai was flustered, he twisted and turned his body sideways. Attacking from left and right, he continuously sent out 6 saber auras. He was so tired that he was gasping for breath, he was exhausted to deal with the attacks. Crack. Xiao Hei's flying sword broke through the 3 blades of light and went straight for Xiao Hei's chest. Finally it slashed on Demon Blade Muramasa. After Demon Blade Muramasa spewed out clouds of blood, it shattered into pieces. The demon blade is broken? Miyamoto Genji was shocked. Suddenly he felt a chill in his crotch. His spiritual power detected that the black iron shuttle had come under him at some point. It rose from the bottom to the sky and pierced his buttocks. Fuck, is this the rhythm of bursting his ass? Master Kong, this is a pinnacle battle. Can you be more serious? This fighting style is too weird. It's so out of place. Many Wuxia martial artists cheered and laughed. At this moment, Jiang Tian unleashed his true strength and completely suppressed his opponent. Everyone was relaxed for a moment. Whoosh whoosh. Miyamoto Genji's figure swayed and retreated. He narrowly avoided the flying sword and shuttle, but the latter immediately chased after him like maggots. For a moment, Miyamoto Geniki was chased by the 2 dark lights like a stray dog. He fled in panic on the top of Mount Fuji, exhausted from dealing with them. Hehe, you run pretty fast. Don't run if you have the guts. Jiang Tian, on the other hand, stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He looked at this scene with a relaxed expression as if he was watching a good show. Kang Taechu, you have the advantage of a weapon, otherwise you wouldn't be his opponent. Miyamoto Genji shouted angrily. Alright, it's time to end this. Die. Suddenly Jiang Tian made his move. There was a loud rumble. His figure turned into a thick golden light beam, leaving a white trace in the air like a rainbow, cutting through the void and rushing toward Miyamoto. What terrifying speed! It has the power to destroy everything in its path. Everyone's hearts trembled. This golden light beam spanned across the sky and no one knew how long it could be. It swept across the sky like a comet, as if it could rush into the depths of the universe. Whether it was the powerhouses on the top of the mountain, the tourists at the foot of the mountain, or the residents of Tokyo at this time, there was only this golden light beam in their eyes. At the same time, the 2 dark lights, like cruise missiles, trembled with a roar and brought out 2 white air tails, piercing toward Miyamoto Genji. Kang Taechu, you can't kill me. Miyamoto Genji's face was distorted. Fear, anger, unwillingness, and many other emotions appeared in the depths of his eyes. He clenched his hands and condensed several spiritual chi shields in front of him. Then he poured a large amount of blood essence into the wind-catching blade, condensing it into a blood-red blade more than 10 meters long. He clenched his hands and slashed out. But it was useless. Whoosh. With a sound, Xiao Hei's flying sword pierced through the blood-red blade, circled around his neck and directly beheaded him. Puff. Before he fell, he was still holding the blade with both hands. The black iron flying shuttle pierced through his chest again, carrying a cloud of blood mist straight into the sky. Whether it was the blood-red blade or the spiritual chi shield, in front of the 2 divine weapons of the spirit treasure level, they were vulnerable. They were useless at all and collapsed like pieces of paper. How can I lose? I can't lose. A blood-red afterimage broke free from his broken body. Its features were clear and indistinct. Then, with a face full of grief and indignation, it turned around and ran away. He was already at the immortal state, phenomenal success, and his soul power was unparalleled. Even if his body was dead, his soul power was still there. You broke my body and destroyed my foundation. I want revenge. I want to take revenge on you madly. I will tear you into pieces. I will kill all of your family and not leave a chicken or a dog alive. Miyamoto Geniki's blood-red soul gritted his teeth and cursed crazily as he ran away. If the soul power escaped, it could be refined into a spirit server by absorbing the power of faith, or it could be hidden in a Dharma artifact looking for a chance to be possessed. It would not be a real death and it would not be destroyed in body and soul. It would still have combat power and it could even increase its combat power. You idiot, you still want revenge? Go to hell. Zhang Tian sneered and took out the soul-guiding flute, which had been refined into a soul-swallowing flute. He put it to his mouth, pinched his fingers and blew the soulless lure. The soulless lure was a demonic sound in the cultivation world that could suppress the soul power. Combined with the soul-guiding bamboo to make the soul-swallowing flute, not to mention his soul avatar, even the soul avatar of a foundation establishment stage cultivator would be no match for it. The sound spiraled in a low voice, like a morning song, very sad and soul-stirring. The moment the soulless lure was played, the blood-red soul suddenly stopped, as if it had been immobilized by an immortal. That's impossible. The blood-red soul looked down and saw blood-red particles between its fingers and the surface of its body slowly disintegrating and spreading. In the end, they surged toward the soul-swallowing flute like streams of blood. Master Kong, please spare my life. Master Kong, I won't take revenge anymore. I'm willing to be your slave as long as you spare my soul. Kong Teichu, you're too cruel. I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. No matter how Miyamoto Geniki's soul struggled, begged and threatened, it was useless. He watched in despair as the blood-red particles disintegrated and flowed, and were continuously devoured by the soul-swallowing flute. He's still threatening? Your soul has been devoured by me. Do you still have a chance to become a ghost? Zhang Tian snorted and blew the soulless lure and a surging Dharma power swept over. In just a minute, this peerless immortal state overlord who had dominated Japan for decades and stood at the top of Japan, completely disappeared from this world. Not even a drop of his soul was left behind. Everyone was dumbfounded and felt a chill in their hearts. His body and soul had been destroyed. This was the complete destruction of his body and soul. Kong Teichu's methods were too terrifying, too terrifying. Kong Teichu won. Master Kong is mighty and domineering. Countless figures in Wuxia's martial arts world cheered and felt elated. Master Kong has never been defeated since his debut. He has never met a worthy opponent. How can an old man who cooks be a match for our Master Kong? Many members of the Heavenly Alliance yelled excitedly, their faces full of glory as they shared the honor. He didn't let us down. With such cultivation, I'm afraid that not many people in the hidden sects can defeat him. Taoist Master Qing Mu's Wazimu, and the other overlords of the hidden sects and semi-hidden sects were in awe. My brother Chu is awesome. He will dominate Japan and be invincible. Duguxiao laughed wildly and kept somersaulting. So this is my husband. Even Zhao Xueqing had a proud look on her face. She felt proud of her husband. Most of the overlords in Wuxia were excited and happy, and their respect for Zhang Tian had deepened. Japan and Wuxia's martial arts world had been in conflict for a long time. Now that Zhang Tian had killed Miyamoto Geniki, the most powerful man in the Japanese martial arts world, it was a significant event. Everyone felt proud and elated. The strength that Zhang Tian is displaying right now is probably at the peak of the divine realm. He's not far away from the legendary human immortal. Yi Zhantian's eyes were full of excitement. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and his face became serious. If so, his father's chances of winning the battle with Zhang Tian in 3 years would be greatly reduced. How am I supposed to stop this contest? It must be known that the battle between masters at this level was too dangerous. A slight mistake would result in casualties. The death of any one of them would be a great loss to the martial arts world of Wuxia. Many powerful figures from the dark world looked at the figure that was slowly descending from the sky and shivered. They were filled with regret. In their eyes, Miyamoto Geniki was one of the most powerful creatures in this world. Even Zeus would only have a 70% chance of winning. But now he was killed by Kong Teichu. Didn't that mean that Kong Teichu was invincible in this world? They regretted it so much. When the news of Kong Teichu's death on the Great East Asia came, why were they so impulsive, brainless and idiotic to go to Jinling to make trouble? Now Jiang Taichu was still alive, not to mention that he had lost many soldiers and was beaten badly by the Heavenly Alliance. they were targeted by Kang Taechu, how could they survive in the future? They would be killed in minutes. He can really devour mind power like the legends say. This is too scary. I'm afraid that even the 3 overgods can't kill him. Perhaps only if all 6 chief gods attack together will we have a chance of killing him. Artemis's pretty face became serious as if she was facing a great enemy. Her evaluation of Jiang Tian was renewed again. She recalled the details of the battle between Jiang Tian and Miyamoto Genichi and planned to report it to Zeus in detail to make a more accurate assessment of his combat power. This is the strength of the Grand Master of Singapore. It seems that no one in East Asia can defeat him. The Red Boat Mage's face was flushed with excitement and joy. In history, Singapore had been invaded by East Asia many times and hated the East Asians to the core. Now they were also very happy. Master, you are so powerful. You defeated East Asia. Before this, I thought that the chances of victory were slim. In Tanjuan's faction, Li Jinju's clear and beautiful eyes behind the sunglasses flickered with the light of joy. She looked at the tall and dignified figure with reverence. More than half of the East Asian powerhouses have been killed in this battle. I'm afraid they won't be able to be domineering and arrogant in the future. The old priest of the mysterious tribe in South America sighed in a hoarse voice, his face full of shock. In fact, the powerhouses from all over the world were shocked, in disbelief, bewilderment, and uneasiness. They bowed slightly to show their friendliness and respect to this almost invincible powerhouse. Chapter 448. Whoosh whoosh. Jiang Tian floated to the ground. His moon-white robe was undamaged and unstained by dust. This also showed that he had not exerted his full strength in the battle and still had a protective aura. Otherwise, his robe would have been torn apart. Realizing this, many powerhouses became even more respectful. After this battle, Master Kong will probably completely suppress East Asia and be almost invincible in the world. Congratulations, Master Kong. In the Blue Storm team, the professor drove his wheelchair forward and cupped his hands to congratulate Jiang Tian, making the most important footnote for the far-reaching impact of this battle. Invincible in East Asia. Yes, his might shook Wuxia. The Chinese of Singapore will submit, and the Tanjun faction will be under his control. In this battle he defeated the #1 in East Asia and is invincible in East Asia. Hearing this, all the powerhouses in the world were shocked. They looked at Jiang Tian with more respect and fear. Congratulations, Master Kong. Artemis, Red Boat Mage, Li Jinju, the old priest from South America, and many other powerhouses, no matter what they thought, lowered their heads to show their respect. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, glanced at the powerhouses and said indifferently, I crossed East Asia and fought many bloody battles not because I like to kill, but because the Cherry Blossom Society has repeatedly invaded Wuxia. The powerhouses of Wuxia never cause trouble, but they are not afraid of trouble. His voice gradually became cold and solemn. I hope that everyone will not cause trouble in Wuxia. Those who violate this rule will be killed without mercy. Yes, we obey Master Kang's decree. Many powerhouses heard this and their bodies suddenly trembled, and they hurriedly bowed and agreed. In the future, don't provoke Wuxia anymore. The farther the better. Not to mention that Wuxia has Yi Zhantian and the experts of the hidden sect. Just Kang Taechu alone is enough to kill us. Many powerhouses of the dark world were anxious, afraid that Jiang Tian would be annoyed and kill them all in one breath. Fortunately, Jiang Tian's current target was only East Asia, and he was not interested in dealing with them. After that, Jiang Tian glanced at the Japanese camp led by Sasaki Haisha and slowly walked over. When they saw that Miyamoto Genichi had been killed, many Japanese overlords were devastated. Shock, fear, uneasiness, despair, regret, and many other emotions swirled in their hearts, tormenting them. Every single one of them felt a chill run down their spines from head to toe. Their faces were as pale as paper, and they shivered like a group of quails in the cold wind. They shivered with their heads lowered and didn't dare meet Jiang Tian's gaze. This was Miyamoto Genichi, the #1 person in Japan. Even he had been killed by Master Kong in body and soul. Japan no longer had any trump cards and no one could be a match for him. What would happen to Japan in the future? What if Kang Taechu wanted to kill everyone? He was at the mercy of others. They were really regretful. They had been too arrogant in the past and had repeatedly offended Wuxia, treating Wuxia as if no one was there. Then the sleeping dragon had awakened and the sleeping lion had roared. They finally knew how powerful Wuxia's martial arts was. Kang Teichu was someone they couldn't afford to offend. Seeing Jiang Tian walk over, the group of people was uneasy and their heads almost reached their crotch. Only Sasaki Haisha and the other overlords raised their heads and glared at Jiang Tian, their eyes full of anger. Sasaki Haisha was wearing a white robe and holding a cold moon in her hand. Her face was as beautiful as a painting and she looked valiant. Today I killed Gong Tsui. You Cherry Blossom Society bastards, do you submit? Jiang Tian asked indifferently. Overlords of East Asia follow the spirit of samurai. A warrior can be killed but not humiliated. The others were uneasy and speechless. However, Sasaki Haisha raised her cold and beautiful face, glaring at Jiang Tian with resentment and said proudly, "What the fuck? Don't humiliate your sister. And I will beat you to the ground. I will humiliate you. What can you do to me?" Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and suddenly slapped down with his palm. Boom. With a loud bang, the void shook. A giant golden palm about 3 meters long fell from the sky like a Buddha slapping down the 5-finger mountain. You. With a swish, a cold light flashed and Sasaki Haisha unsheathed her cold moon blade. But before she could make a move, the cold moon blade was knocked out of her hand by the pressure of the golden palm. Kangtu. I won't kneel. Suddenly, Sasaki Haisha felt as if Mount Fuji was pressing on his body. His face turned red and he tried to resist. He struggled hard, but the bones all over his body made strange cracking sounds. It seemed that he would be crushed into powder in the next moment. Kneel down. Jiang Tian shouted calmly as his palm continued to press down. Sasaki Haisha struggled and cursed, but it was useless. She only lasted for 3 seconds before her knees went soft. She knelt on the ground and then lay on the ground like a frog, unable to move. I hate that stinky face. Can't be humiliated? I will humiliate you. Rub, rub, rub again. Jiang Tian smirked and moved his palm back and forth. Sasaki Haisha was like a rubber man, constantly rolling and deforming under the rubbing of the golden palm. Her clothes were torn, revealing her snow-white skin. Her pretty face was in close contact with the dirty and hard ground again and again. Her face and hair were disheveled. He is really rubbing on the ground. Seeing this, everyone was speechless, but Dugu Xiao cheered excitedly. The former president of the Sakura Society was killed, and the new president, Sasaki Haisha, was rubbed by Jiang Tian. The Sakura Society was a big joke and they couldn't raise their heads. Kang Teichu, you bully too much. Next to him, Kawasaki Yi, a disciple of Miyamoto Geniki, couldn't stand it anymore. With a roar, he pulled out his katana and rushed toward Jiang Tian. A katana slashed down and a sharp katana swept out, like the Milky Way falling from the 9th heaven, heading toward Jiang Tian. Idiot. If you want to die, then die. Jiang Tian didn't look at it, just waved his sleeve. With a loud bang, a 7th metal true essence surged like a tide, and the stormy waves pushed out, containing a majestic force. Wherever it passed, the rocks flew, people were overturned, and a 10-meter-long and 1-meter-wide friction mark appeared on the ground, as if it had been pushed by a bulldozer. Kawasaki Yi, who was the first to be hit, suddenly stagnated, and the katana made of steel collapsed into pieces, and then it was as if it had been hit by a high-speed train. Amidst the splattering blood arrows, he was blasted into pieces with a bang, turning into pieces of corpse that fell to the ground. He was deader than dead. Too powerful. It's terrible. The audience was shocked and everyone was stunned. They all gasped and were scared out of their wits. As a disciple of Miyamoto Geniki, although Kawasaki Yi was slightly inferior to Momoi Aitaro and Sasaki Haisha, he was also ranked among the great teachers of kendo. In terms of kendo, he could be ranked in the top 10 in Japan, but he was smashed into pieces by Jiang Tian. We've been fighting for so long. Are you convinced? Jiang Tian looked at Sasaki Haisha and asked mockingly. I'm convinced. Sasaki Haisha's face was full of humiliation and resentment, but in the end he sighed deeply, shed tears of grievance, bowed his head and admitted defeat. That's good, I'll spare your life. You can't humiliate me. Bah. A group of ants, I can humiliate you however I want. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and raised his palm. Puff. Sasaki Haisha struggled to stand up. Hearing those words, she was so angry that she vomited blood and almost fell to the ground again. As a genius in the way of the sword, she had always been conceited. Now that she had been appointed as the president of the Cherry Blossom Society, she even shouldered the dignity of the East Ocean. Yet now she had been publicly trampled on by Zhou Xian, forced to admit defeat before the eyes of the world's experts and repeatedly humiliated. This was unacceptable to her, and her lungs almost exploded from anger. She really didn't want to admit defeat, but if she didn't, she would die. Under Zhou Xian's claws, she felt like a worm. Moreover, she knew that if Zhou Xian wanted to kill her, no one could save her. No one present was a match for Zhou Xian. Although his words are unpleasant, he's right. We are really like ants in his hands. What kind of demon is he? Looking at Zhou Xian's back, Sasaki Haisha felt that he was incomparably tall and powerful. She was in despair and couldn't say a word. You were yelling happily just now. You should die too. Zhou Xian glanced coldly at Sun Jingyi in the crowd and directly hit the air with his finger. Boom. This time Sun Jingyi was just a mortal. How could he withstand it? It was as if he had been shot in the chest by an armor-piercing bullet from a sniper rifle. Half of his body exploded and he couldn't be more dead. Plop. Plop. Mitsui Takori, Fuji Isai, and many other Japanese tycoons and politicians knelt on the ground in fear, kowtowing and begging for mercy. As for Sasaki Haisha and other strong people who were known as the Guardians of Japan, they just stood there trembling like quails in the cold wind. They didn't even dare to fart or show the slightest anger when they saw that he was killed. Sasaki Haisha, wait for me. Don't run around. I have something to ask you later. Zhou Xian said and flew towards Zhao Xueqing, the Heavenly Alliance Tanjun's faction, and the Singapore Chinese Society. Leader. Master Kong. Master. President. Everyone hurried to greet him with joy. Everyone felt proud and their blood was boiling. Zhou Xian's battle had really shocked Japan. He was invincible in East Asia. Who would dare to provoke the Heavenly Alliance or any of Master Kang's forces in the future? Even Zhao Xueqing, who was indifferent, couldn't help but look at Zhou Xian with tenderness and admiration. This is my husband. He's the pride of my life. He's my support that will never collapse. Maybe I should have a child and take care of my husband and children. With my current status, what else can I ask for? She sent a message to Zhou Xian with her divine sense. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment and then nodded uncharacteristically. Okay, wait for me to return home and make a baby. Zhou Xian glanced at the crowd and suddenly thought of something. He said, Tanjun and the Chinese Society, join the Heavenly Alliance. You can discuss how to integrate on the way. We've been thinking about this for a long time. Thank you, Master Kong, for your permission. Master Hong Chan and Li Jinju bowed to express their gratitude. Huaqing Tian also nodded. The two major organizations and the Heavenly Alliance were one. They could exchange information, share resources, and double their strength. After all, the Heavenly Alliance had many transcendent masters. After the integration, even without Master Kong, the Heavenly Alliance would still be the most powerful organization in East Asia. Suddenly, Yi Zhantian hurried over and said with a serious face, Brother Jiang, everyone, the Long Formation Intelligence Department has analyzed the next move of the Japanese Ministry of Defense. The results are out. What? Zhou Xian turned around and asked. The current Prime Minister of the Japanese Cabinet and the Secretary of the Ministry of Defense are well-known far-right and hawkish figures in Japanese politics. We have reason to believe that they are likely to mobilize the self-defense forces and wipe out all the overlords in Wuxia. As soon as Yi Zhantian's words came out, the crowd fell silent. Everyone's face turned pale and they were extremely anxious. Chapter 449. Military. That was the most terrifying force on Earth. No immortal state cultivator could compete with them. In history, even immortal state warriors could only run away when they encountered a modern army equipped with large-scale thermal weapons. They didn't dare to fight head-on. After all, this was an era of rapid technological advancement. New weapons were emerging one after another with terrifying lethality. Isn't this against the rules of martial arts? That's despicable. Huaqing Tian frowned and scolded. When did the Japanese ever talk about rules? Our top priority now is to leave Japan as soon as possible. Yi Zhantian said with a frown. Master Hongfun quickly said, Everyone, we came here on the presidential plane of Singapore. The Japanese government would not dare to detain us. Please follow us and leave. My plane is also from the South Korean government. I can send all of you back to Wuxia. I don't think the Japanese would dare to do anything to us. Li Jinju added. That's great. Master Kong, let's go. Yi Zhantian's eyes lit up and he nodded. He heaved a sigh of relief. If the Japanese were to detain the presidential plane of another country, it would cause an international dispute. They would not dare to do so. If Master Kong did not have friends all over the world, we would be in deep trouble. Taoist Master Qingmu, Zhou Xian, and the other martial artists who were not members of the Heaven Alliance were grateful. If the Japanese self-defense forces were to attack them, they would not have the strength and courage to fight back. Jiang Tian had saved their lives. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian shook his head and said, I still have some things to do. I have to stay for 3 days. Are you going to fight the military? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Japanese self-defense forces were about to be deployed. The best strategy was to run. If Qin Xiaobei did not leave now, he would be courting death. What? Yi Zhantian panicked. Suddenly he realized something and frowned. Brother, are you going to rob the treasure vault of the Cherry Blossom Society? Yes. If I kill the monsters and don't get any equipment, I would be in big trouble. Jiang Tian's words left everyone speechless. Chao Jinjia said angrily, Master Kong, do you want to die? That's the army we're talking about. It's too dangerous. Although she worshipped Jiang Tian, she couldn't stand Jiang Tian's arrogant attitude. This behavior was tantamount to courting death. That's right. What cultivation resources do you need? Our long formation can provide you with them. You can't take such a risk. Yi Zhantian said anxiously. Brother Jiang, now is not the time to snatch cultivation resources. Now that no one in East Asia is your match, why don't you go back to China first, then find a chance to sneak back and catch them off guard? Taoist Master Qingmu also advised. I have made up my mind. Jiang Tian's tone was indifferent, and his expression was calm. He had planted a seed of joy in the hearts of many Japanese experts, officials, and tycoons. These people were equivalent to hostages. If the Japanese self-defense forces dared to make a move, they would have to pay the price in blood. Seeing this, everyone was helpless and gave up on persuading him. If Jiang Tian was unwilling to leave, they couldn't possibly tie him up and bring him back. Who would have the ability to do so? Alliance leader, we are willing to fight side by side with you. The people of the Heaven Alliance were even more enthusiastic. They took the initiative to volunteer to stay in East Asia and fight with Jiang Tian. Now all of you go back and preserve your strength. I have a way to deal with this. Jiang Tian ordered. No one dared to disobey. Among these people, except for his beloved wife Qing'er, none of them had the strength to fight against an army. They would only be cannon fodder if they went. It was meaningless and unnecessary. Hubby, I will go to the Prime Minister's official residence in the East Asia cabinet now. Zhao Xueqing patted the head of Qitian, who was squatting on her shoulder, and looked at Jiang Tian tenderly. I'm sorry to let you take the risk. Jiang Tian held her little hand and squeezed it gently. He was a little apologetic. We had been husband and wife for so long. Don't be so courteous. Qing'er smiled coquettishly. She reached out her hand and caressed Jiang Tian's face. She said softly, when husband and wife are of one heart, they can cut through gold. If I don't help you, who will? Besides, don't worry. I've observed their defense. They won't be able to stop me. You must be careful. If you can't beat them, run. I naturally have a way to escape. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Let heaven's equal monkey follow you. Zhao Xueqing nodded and said softly, this naughty monkey has been cultivating in the villa every day. Its current cultivation is comparable to a half-step to divine realm. Moreover, it has immense strength and is suitable for direct combat. Let's split up. When we return to China, we will make a baby. Jiang Tian nodded and waved his hand. Qitian laughed weirdly and jumped onto his shoulder. You bad guy. Zhao Xueqing's face turned red. She rolled her eyes at him, her eyes filled with tenderness. Even though Zhao Xueqing's cultivation was heaven-defying, she was still like a 16-year-old girl when it came to matters between men and women. Jiang Tian smiled and saluted everyone. Then he jumped in front of Sasaki Kaisha and said coldly, Come with me. Kong Teichu won. He killed Miyamoto Geniki on Mount Fuji. In the information age, the news reached Wuxia in just a few hours. The whole world of cultivation was shocked. Everyone could not believe it at first. Kong Taichu had defeated Wang Chongyan, Qiao Bin and Momoy Ryutaro. Although Wang Chongyan was the Grand Preceptor of Singapore, Singapore was not a superpower. He was only a half-step to divine realm. His actual cultivation was still in the Grandmaster level. Although Qiao Bin had the backing of a superpower, he could not be compared to Miyamoto Genichi. Qiao Bin and Yi Tianren were of the same generation. Miyamoto Genichi had fought with Yi Tianren before. He was an immortal state master of the older generation and he was at the God realm culmination. However, Kong Taichu defeated him, which was really shocking. When many details of the battle on Mount Fuji came out, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. Kong Taichu was really powerful. In this battle he broke the mountain and caused the volcano to erupt. Was he still a human being? He was like a god. The point was that it involved national hatred. Wang Chongyan and Qiao Bin were traitors and hostile forces. But in terms of evil they were still not comparable to Miyamoto Genichi of the Sakura Society. Since the invasion of the Eight-Nation Alliance for a century after the War of Warlords, the Republic of China, the Anti-Japanese War, and even after the founding of the country, the Sakura Society had been wreaking havoc in Wuxia, carrying out destructive and subversive activities and killing countless masters in Wuxia. It could be said that the martial arts world in Wuxia hated them to the core. There was a blood feud and they couldn't wait to crush their bones and scatter their ashes to vent their hatred. For a time, this earth-shattering news was spread in the secluded sects such as the Shinong School and the Langyi Academy, the Hua family, the Zhao family, the Zhang family and the Tang sect in Chuan. In the Changbai Mountain in the northeast, endless falling trees rustled. The autumn was very bleak. Sun's mother, Master Kong, avenged you. He killed Ryutaro Momoy, the president of the Sakura Society, and Miyamoto Genichi of the Kendo sect. In front of a grave, Qing Ming and his son Qing Yi were burning incense and offering sacrifices to his wife who had died tragically in the hands of the East Asians. They opened a bottle of old northeastern wine and poured it on the ground. Mother, we have avenged you. You should rest in peace in the netherworld. Qing Yi threw himself in front of the tombstone and wailed. Do you know? The one who avenged you was Jiang Tian. He always ate the buns you made. Now he has become a martial arts grandmaster. These were tears of joy and relief. The big stone that had been pressing on the hearts of the Qing family's father and son was finally removed. If the Sakura Society had not been destroyed, they would never have been able to face their dead relatives and would have been tortured by hatred and guilt for the rest of their lives. In the photo inlaid on the tombstone, the woman with a gentle smile was as light as a chrysanthemum. She was a perfect match for the chrysanthemums that were silently blooming around her. Those chrysanthemums trembled and swayed in the breeze, as if the spirit in heaven could hear the prayers of her husband and child. It was Master Kong who took us in. It was Master Kong who avenged your mother and the Qing family. When they went down the mountain, Qing Ming said earnestly, we will never be able to repay Master Kang's great kindness to us in this lifetime. Well, from now on my life belongs to Jiang Tian. We will guard the Jiang family firmly. We will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Qing Yi wiped away the tears on his face. His resolute face became even more solemn. His reddened eyes flashed with determination. At this moment, even if he had to die for Jiang Tian, he wouldn't hesitate. This scene was still happening in many places in Wuxia. They paid their respects to their old friends who had died at the hands of the Sakura Society and remembered Master Kang's kindness. At the villa on Mount Fulong, Shin Mange was unhappy. She frowned and went out to take a look. She was restless. Ghost Kick saw this and shook his head with a sigh. The little girl really wanted to go to Japan to watch the battle but was forced to stay by her mistress. She had been in a bad mood for the past 2 days. Suddenly, Shin Mange's phone rang. She saw that it was Swazimu calling. When she picked up, she immediately laughed and said, "Ah, Master Kong won." Ghost Kick was so excited that he did not know what to say. He rubbed his hands and said, "Great news, great news. We must celebrate with a drink. I want the servants to cook." Outside the door, Huang Linger, who was sitting in the middle of the herb field, heard their conversation. A sweet smile appeared on her clear and pretty face as if she was suddenly relieved. Chapter 450. In the CEO's office of the Medicine King Group. Yi Ziwei's hair was tied up in a bun, and she was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. She was in a meeting with a group of executives, but she looked a little out of it. Suddenly she received a phone call. When she put down the phone, she felt energized as if she had been injected with chicken blood. Jinlin City, Linzhou City, Yanjin. Many people who had been paying attention to the battle were shocked when they heard the news. Then they heaved a sigh of relief. The impact of this battle was too far-reaching. Kang Taichu did not represent himself, his family, or an organization. He represented the entire martial arts community in Wuxia. After all, after he killed Xiaobin, he was regarded as the most powerful martial artist in Wuxia. If he had lost this battle, the Sakura Society and the other overlords in Wuxia would have thought that he was invincible. They would probably come to Wuxia to commit crimes again. Now that Japan's sword god had been killed by Zhou Xian, it meant that the entire Japanese overlord world was under Kang Taichu's feet. Who would dare to be arrogant anymore? Moreover, the 6 Shikigamis had fallen and the sword sage Ryutaro Momoi and the other experts had been killed. The Japanese cultivation world had suffered great losses and lost half of their forces. Their vitality was greatly damaged and they couldn't even protect themselves. They no longer had the capital to wreak havoc in Wuxia. In the base of the long formation in Yanjin. Good. The impact of this battle is far greater than the battle in Singapore. Chao Shixiang slammed the table and stood up after receiving the secret report. He laughed and said, Beidasheng is a cunning guy. I didn't expect that he would shoot himself in the foot. Let's see if he still dares to covet the position of the long formation's leader. Red Sparrow smiled and said, Elder Chao, I heard that Beidasheng smashed 3 antique porcelain vases after receiving the news. It seems that he's really angry. Dragon Head Yi and many other overlords have left the country safely on private planes from Singapore and South Korea, but Kang Taichu is still in Japan. Black Tortoise said with a complicated expression. Why? Chao Shixiang was shocked. Didn't you do an assessment? Japanese self-defense forces. He said that since we've killed monsters we should pick up the equipment. Even Dragon Head Yi couldn't stop him. Black Tortoise said helplessly. Sai, I really don't know what to do with this kid. Chao Shixiang sighed at Zhang Tian's courage and bravery. At the same time he was also worried. Knitting his brows he ordered, pay close attention to this matter and inform the Japanese embassy. He is the guardian of our Wuxia. We can't let anything happen to him. After all, at Zhang Tian's level his destructive power was too shocking. He was like the Dongfeng missile superfighter jets or aircraft carriers. He was enough to be promoted to a strategic level and was highly valued by a country or army. He could not be lost. Linzhou Hidden Dragon Villa. Tang Guizhou quickly walked into a quiet room and said with a smile, Last great news. Your master defeated Miyamoto Geniki. What's so strange about that? Tang Linglong packed her luggage and did not seem surprised. Then she shook her head in disdain and said, He's just an old man who cooks. He can't even lift his sword. How can he be my master's opponent? He's a godlike man. That makes sense. Tang Guizhou laughed and nodded. Then he suddenly asked in surprise, Linglong, why are you packing your luggage? Grandpa, I'm going to travel. Tang Linglong looked up and carried her backpack on her shoulder. Travel? What are you going to do? Tang Guizhou asked in surprise. Firstly, to improve my cultivation. Secondly, to find heavenly materials and earthly treasures for my master's cultivation. I've already mastered the Hauran body refining art and the 13 strange sword techniques that my master taught me. It's hard for me to improve if I stay at home. Tang Linglong said firmly. And I heard that there are some unknown places in Wuxia called the Yin sect. I should be able to find something. Linglong Jianghu is dangerous. If you want cultivation resources, your master has a lot of them. Why would he let you use them? If you want cultivation methods, your master has a lot of them. Why do you have to do this? Tang Guizhou anxiously advised. Grandpa, don't worry about me. I'm now at Qi refining stage 2, which is equivalent to a transcendent grandmaster. Tang Linglong smiled. I want to be a woman who can stand shoulder to shoulder with my master. I want to be a woman who is worthy of him. Then I can't live under his protection forever. I've already lost my position in the army. Without an official position, I'm free to walk my own path. Sigh. Tang Guizhou could only sigh helplessly. She was no longer the little girl she used to be. Grandpa, I'm leaving. Tang Linglong carried her backpack and walked out of the crouching Dragon Mountain Resort without looking back. She left Tang Guizhou with a lonely and determined back view. Not only Wuxia, the impact of this battle had spread all over the world, even beyond Japan and Wuxia. When Li Jianxi of South Korea's Star Moon Group heard the news, he immediately called for a family meeting to further strengthen the cooperation with Medicine King Group and Master Kang's companies. Now, Daewoo Pharmaceutical had become Medicine King Group's processing plant, and Medicine King Group's products were sold all over South Korea. Li Jianxi's influence in South Korea was no less than the president of a country. A group of luxury companies led by Medicine King Group, including the Jiang family, Su family, Bai family, Tai family, Tang family, Lin Zhou's Tang family, Long family, and Haizhou's Yi family, would visit South Korea in a few days to further expand their market. This is not only the glory of Master Kong, but also the glory of the Chinese people in Singapore. This is so exciting. In Singapore, President Lee Hsien Loong was overjoyed when he heard the news. He immediately announced a grand celebration. During the celebration, the names of Kong Taechu and Master Kong were mentioned again and again. Damn, Kong Taechu is not dead, and he even won. He even killed the origin of Kenshin Gong. Is he going to make me live on Big Turtle Island for the rest of my life? In Big Circle, 6th Old Man Fan had just moved to the casino in Las Vegas. He had not even warmed his seat when he heard the news. He immediately ran to the airport and took a private plane back to Big Turtle Island. According to witnesses, 6th Master Fan was panting heavily from running. He had even lost one of his iconic old Beijing cloth shoes. He was like a rabbit being chased by a wolf, running as fast as Zhou Xian. In the United States, the professor led many observers from Blue Storm back to the secret base at Area 51. The leader of Blue Storm immediately gathered all the members in one place and held an emergency meeting. Many generals from the Pentagon also attended the meeting. A high-ranking general's face was very serious after he heard the report. He scanned the crowd and said in a deep voice, "The rise of Kong Taechu poses a challenge to us. If a god-level expert were to appear in a big city, how would we be able to launch an effective attack against them without causing a large number of innocent citizens to be injured or killed, and without nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction being able to be used?" On the dark web, discussions about Jiang Taichu were once again rampant, and posts flooded the screen. Some time ago, the observer who had been slapped in the face by the news of Jiang Taichu's death was once again regarded as a standard. The observer had also posted a few posts before, claiming that Kong Taechu could not have died, but they quickly disappeared. After all, the Japanese Prime Minister had come out to speak, and there were even photos of the corpse. Who would believe the observer's analysis? But this time, everyone once again discovered that the observer's insight was truly terrifying. It was simply a flawless plan. The observer is really wise. Half a year ago he predicted that Kong Taechu would sweep through Japan. Now that I've seen it, it's true. Someone exclaimed. The observer also reminded the butterfly skeleton and the others not to provoke Kong Taechu and Wuxia, but they didn't listen. They must be regretting it now. Some fans of the observer mocked. The butterfly skeleton and other organizations that have a grudge against Jiang Tian all stopped talking. They can no longer be arrogant and can only send a string of crying emojis. How powerful is Kong Taechu now? Is he at the immortal state phenomenal success or the perfected one? How many people on this planet are his opponents? Zeus, the kindred, or the top 10 masters on the power rankings? Someone asked. As soon as this question was asked, everyone immediately had their own opinions and started to discuss it all at once. The argument was so intense that it couldn't be stopped. Miyamoto Genichi is said to be at the immortal state phenomenal success, but he's too old. I'm afraid his combat power has weakened. Kong Taechu killed him, but it can't prove that he's at the immortal state phenomenal success. He might not even be at the immortal state level. Some people were not optimistic about Kong Taechu's power. You're talking shit. Miyamoto Genichi broke through to the immortal state phenomenal success at the last moment. His spirit, body, and aura combined. He even cut off the sword peak of Mount Fuji and made the volcano erupt. Kong Taechu can kill him. If he's not at the immortal state phenomenal success, then what is he? He might even be at his peak state. Some people supported Kong Taechu. Miyamoto Genichi is a master in the Japanese cultivation world. The means he used may be ninjutsu. Some people were not convinced. Even if Kong Taechu is at the immortal state, he may not be a match for Zeus. Zeus is the master of the Temple of Gods. Someone said. The observer come out. What is Kong Teichu's combat power now? Everyone quarreled and refused to accept each other, but they couldn't come to a conclusion. They could only call the observer out. Kong Teichu's combat power is definitely at the peak of the immortal state, or even above it. The observer might be a little angry because of everyone's quarrel some time ago. He didn't show up until half an hour later. Above the immortal state? What's that? However, as soon as the words came out, everyone present was stunned again. As expected of the observer's style. Maybe you don't know that there are more powerful overlords above the immortal state, but they are very rare. It is said that in the long history of mankind only a few hundred people have reached it. So few people know about it. The observer spoke tirelessly. The cultivators in Wuxia are called immortals. The cultivators in the temple of gods are called true gods, venerables and saints. More people call them myths. They are called different names but the meaning is the same. They are no longer human beings. They belong to the real gods. Jiang Taichu has become a real deity. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. They were dumbfounded. Chapter 451. Aren't the 12 main gods of the pantheon true gods? Someone asked. Everyone should know that Zeus and the other members of the pantheon aren't true gods. They're still humans. They're powerful, similar to some of the abilities of the 12 main gods in Greek mythology, and have a good relationship with the Holy See. They once defeated the Covenant of Darkness, the Blood Clan and the werewolves. That's why they got their name. The observer said, they're not true gods. They're just like gods. There's still someone stronger than the god state. Kong Teichu has become a true god. Doesn't that mean he's not even as strong as Zeus? Zeus is no match for him. That's too shocking. When the observer said that, everyone was stunned and their hearts trembled. You may not believe it, but I'm guessing that Kong Teichu and Zeus will fight within 10 years. You'll know the result then. The observer said with certainty. Why? Zeus has already expressed goodwill to Kong Teichu and the Long Formation. Both sides are minding their own business. Someone couldn't believe it. It's simple. The observer analyzed. The world is huge for us, but for the strong the earth is too small and cultivation resources are too scarce. Resources are limited and the strong's desire to become stronger is endless. There's bound to be a fight between them. As soon as the observer said that, the entire forum was dead silent. No one dared to say a word. Was Zeus and Kong Teichu going to fight? That would be truly earth-shattering. It was going to blow up the earth. While the whole world was shocked and frightened by the name of Jiang Taichu, the entire world was shocked and frightened. Jiang Tian took a black Toyota off-road vehicle in a low-key manner and went straight to the Miyamoto family's old house in the suburbs of Fukushima Prefecture. Master Kong, the Miyamoto family's treasures and all the cultivation resources of the Sakura Society are in the Miyamoto family's old house. Next to him, Sasaki Haisa, who was driving, reported with a pale face. His eyes flashed with humiliation and anger. She was the great teacher of Japanese kendo and the new president of the Sakura Society, but she was captured by Kong Teichu and became his prisoner. This was an unbearable defeat and humiliation. I'm afraid that when Kong Teichu returns with a full load and safely leaves Japan, I will also be punished and become a sinner of Japan. Sasaki Kaisha thought in despair. You don't have to worry too much about what will happen after I take away these cultivation resources and treasures. You don't have to worry about being punished by the Japanese either. Jiang Tian said calmly. Why? Sasaki Haisha frowned. Because you will die soon. Jiang Tian patted Chi Tian's head and smiled faintly. What? Are you going to kill me? I've already shown you the way. Sasaki Ocean's delicate body suddenly trembled and she said in surprise and shock. It's not me who wants to kill you. It's the Japan Self-Defense Forces who want to kill us. Jiang Tian smiled and said, they must be using the method of indiscriminate firepower. I might be able to escape but you might not. How is that possible? Sasaki Ocean's pretty face turned pale. I'm the president of the Sakura Society. His Majesty personally appointed me. In her opinion, the Japanese Defense Ministry would not do anything if she was captured by Jiang Tian. Also, many Japanese political and business officials had been cursed by Jiang Tian, so the Japanese Ministry of Defense wouldn't dare to do anything to them. Do you think that cultivators are really that important in the eyes of those real politicians? Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. In their eyes, no matter how strong we are just ordinary people. What really stabilizes the country is the modern army and weapons. Are we really going to do it? Sasaki Ocean's face was ashen. Was she really going to be abandoned by the Japanese government? While she was in a daze, she heard a deafening roar across the sky. At the same time, she felt the earth tremble violently as if an earthquake was about to happen. Fighter jets flew across the sky from afar. Nearby, helicopters hidden in bunkers gradually rose into the sky. From all directions, armored vehicles and tanks rolled up clouds of dust and crushed fields and mountains. Like a torrent of steel, there were more than 100 of them surrounding them. Screech. The friction between the tires and the road suddenly sounded. Sasaki Ocean slammed on the brakes and the Toyota off-road vehicle came to a stop. It's over. We're dead. This is the 28th Mixed Brigade stationed in Fukushima Prefecture. She looked at the shocking scene in front of her in horror and wailed in her heart. In Jiang Tian's divine sense, he could see everything more clearly. There were 10 supersonic fighter jets 10 kilometers away, all equipped with heavy missiles. 5 kilometers away there were Cobra helicopters equipped with all kinds of weapons. There were more than 100 tanks, 50 rocket launchers and 200 armored vehicles. Moreover, the number was still increasing. They were coming in an endless stream and they were very aggressive. Soldiers wearing steel helmets and armed with live ammunition poured out from the mountains and fields. Their eyes were sharp and murderous. There were thousands or even tens of thousands of them. A modern armored force with both land and air forces. This is so exciting. Jiang Tian got out of the carriage and was excited to see the prey. His eyes shone brightly as he scanned the steel torrent. Master, shall we start? Qi Tian stood up from his shoulder, scratching his ears and cheeks excitedly. Cultivator, you are a war criminal in Wuxia. We are ordered to bring you to the military court. Please don't make any unnecessary resistance. Sound waves suddenly came out of a loudspeaker hanging high up on a helicopter, shouting at Jiang Tian in Chinese. Swish. What answered them was a sharp ray of black light. Jiang Tian took a step back with his left foot and leaned his body backward. He took out the black iron shuttle and threw it as if it were a javelin. The black iron flying shuttle broke through the air. The distance of 5 kilometers was not worth mentioning at all under the speed of breaking the sound barrier. It was crossed in an instant. The Cobra helicopter tried to dodge, but it only tilted slightly and was hit. Boom. Boom. The Cobra helicopter exploded in the air like a firework. Its wreckage shot to the sky and a red mushroom cloud rose. What? He destroyed a fighter jet with a javelin? Is he a god? He fought without declaring war. Many of the Japanese soldiers stopped in their tracks. They looked at the man with confusion, shock and disbelief. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble. They had been warned by their superior that their target was an extremely dangerous person, so they were fully prepared for battle. But they had never thought that the enemy would be so powerful. When faced with such a large army, any expert would at least try to mediate the situation and see if there was a peaceful solution, even if they didn't immediately bow their heads and submit to capture. And yet the enemy had attacked. Besides, his combat power was too terrifying. A javelin shot 5 kilometers away and destroyed a Cobra helicopter. Was my eyes playing tricks on me? He's not a god, he's a war criminal. Fire now. A commander shouted loudly, flustered and exasperated. Immediately, a team nearby opened fire. Bang, bang, bang. The teams closest to Jiang Tian were around 3 kilometers away and they were using all kinds of rifles, machine guns and heavy machine guns. This distance was actually beyond the effective range of most non-sniper rifles, so the bullets were no longer accurate. But after all, the enemy was firing at the same time. The bullets were so dense that not even a mosquito could escape. Tian, master has prepared a weapon for you. Do you like it? Jiang Tian took out a big club and said with a smile. This club was more than 3 meters long. Its surface was bumpy, full of bumps, pits and scars. Some parts were as dark as mountain rocks, while others emitted a strange metallic luster. It gave off a wild and unruly feeling. It was made with the leftover materials when he made Xiao Hei's black flying sword and black iron flying shuttle. He had also infused all kinds of weapons he had obtained from the enemy, such as the fragments of Momoi Rutaro's Qingtong blade. And Jiang Tian had embedded a thunder meteorite he had obtained from the Chinese society in Singapore, so it had the power of thunder and lightning. It was very suitable for the fierce and domineering temperament of the battling sacred apes. Master, this weapon is awesome. Xian hadn't transformed yet. He was hugging one end of the big club like a mouse pulling a shovel, which made him look even smaller. At this moment the bullets rained down on it and Xianxia making clanging sounds. However, the two of them were not afraid at all, as if they were really drenched in the rain. How is this possible? It can't be killed. Many Japanese officers were dumbfounded. They gasped as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Some Japanese residents in the distance kept clicking on their cameras. The flashes kept flashing as they took pictures of this shocking scene. As they took pictures they mumbled, "If this is sent to the foreign media I will definitely win a Pulitzer Prize." But then an even more shocking scene happened. Xian suddenly trembled. An armor-piercing bullet had shot off a strand of monkey hair on his head. After this guy had integrated into human society he had been very proud of his looks. He even had his own mohawk hairstyle and was so cool that no one had any friends. Now that his hairstyle was messed up he was really angry. "Damn you Japanese." The little monkey bared his teeth and roared explosively like surging thunderclaps, and his eyes emanated a terrifying glow that was filled with ferocious aura and an evil appearance. As he suddenly twisted his neck, his cervical vertebrae rubbed against each other, producing crisp cracking sounds. With a rumble his body grew taller and taller, instantly reaching a height of 7 to 8 meters like a mountain. His clothes were torn apart by his bulging muscles, and his elastic trousers instantly turned into shorts. Long red hair grew all over his body, and his originally mischievous and cute monkey face turned into golden eyes, fangs, and a head the size of a small car. His body was surrounded by monster chi. "What kind of monster is this?" everyone exclaimed. What they saw was too shocking and appalling. Bang! Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, the equaling heaven saint ape took a step forward. The ground shook violently like the skin of a drum, and a huge pit with a radius of 5 meters caved in. Borrowing the surging recoil he shot into the sky like a missile. Chapter 452. Oh my god, what kind of monster is that? Seeing this, even an idiot would realize the danger. Countless Japanese were so scared that they dropped their guns and looked up to the sky in shock. That was definitely not a normal suspect. He was a super soldier from the Marvel movies, just like the Incredible Hulk. "Fire!" a commander shouted. An M270 self-propelled rocket launcher fired. This was a tracked self-propelled rocket launcher that the United States had been using since 1983 and was exported to Japan. It only took 5 minutes for the launcher to go into combat mode and it was very mobile. In the 1991 Gulf War it once showed its prowess. It was able to effectively use a rocket launcher on a square area of 1 square kilometer and completely destroy its life force. Therefore, military fans like to call it the Square Terminator. The Iraqi soldiers who had escaped death described the M270's firepower as a rain of steel. Within a minute, the 12 298mm fiberglass tubes spun and shot out 12 rockets. The rockets were equipped with a guidance system and were extremely accurate. With Xian as the center, they immediately landed and exploded. Rumble. It was as if the earth was quaking and the mountains were shaking. Clouds exploded on the ground and flames soared into the sky. Its power was enough to tear the earth apart, and the high temperature created by the explosion was enough to kill all living things. "We hit it. That monster is dead." Countless Japanese cheered, but their smiles immediately froze on their faces. Boom. Amid the fire and smoke, a red figure stepped out and shouted, "How dare you hit your grandpa, sacred ape? You deserve to die." Oh my god. The nearby Japanese soldiers were dumbfounded. They were so scared that their hearts almost exploded. Then they all ran away. They already knew that normal guns would never be able to kill that giant ape. After all, not even rocket launchers could kill it. But they didn't know that the sacred battle ape was a demon immortal and its body was extremely strong. In the cultivation realm they could knock down mountains and crack the earth with their feet. They were creatures that didn't belong to any known human beings. The sacred battle ape had also cultivated in Mount Fulong for a few months and had reached the mid-stage of chi refinement. Its strength was comparable to a half-step immortal state cultivator, which was similar to Xianxia. Although he would have to retreat in the face of top-notch thermal weapons such as ground-penetrating missiles, intercontinental missiles and nuclear bombs, he was not afraid of conventional thermal weapons such as rocket launchers. However, even though he wasn't severely injured, the Heavens Equal Saint Ape was still in pain. There was even a bloody wound on his shoulder. He was instantly enraged. With a single step he covered a distance of several hundred meters. The distance of 3 kilometers was covered in just a dozen steps. Rumble. Chi Tian raised the cudgel above his head and smashed it down at the group of Japanese soldiers with a strange howl. Bang. A lightning bolt as thick as an arm shot out like a dancing silver snake. The ground shook violently, rocks flew everywhere and dust flew everywhere. A 10-meter deep pit appeared. The shockwave mixed with dust, blood and body parts rippled out dozens of meters away. Under the monstrous strength of the equaling Heaven Saint Ape, the armored vehicles that could withstand the bombardment of cannons and the tanks that weighed 10 tons were all turned into iron lumps. Some were sent flying several meters away, unable to turn over like turtles lying on their backs. Crack. In the command vehicle, the Eagle faction officer in charge of this operation, Ikeda, dropped the walkie-talkie in his hand. He shouted angrily, "Those damn intelligence officers never said that Kong Teichu has a monkey. I want to punish all of them according to military law." He picked up the walkie-talkie with trembling hands and shouted, "Tanks, armored vehicles, armed helicopters, kill that monkey Kong Teichu." "But Lieutenant, there are still a few hundred people in our vanguard that haven't left." Cold sweat broke out on the forehead of one of the officers below as he shouted loudly. "Ignore them. The order from the Ministry of Defense is to kill them at all costs." Ikeda Xiaozhua shouted in anger. "Yes, Lieutenant. Lieutenant." After a series of noises of acknowledgement, dozens of armored vehicles formed a mixed group. With the advantage of high mobility, they were the first to climb over the hills and paddy fields and charge toward Jiangtian and equaling Heaven Saint Ape. Most of these armored vehicles were American M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. They were fully armored and had caterpillar tracks. Moreover, they were amphibious vehicles. When they floated on the water, they would raise a folding canopy and use caterpillar tracks to propel themselves forward. Armor-piercing bullets with depleted uranium cores were shot out from the 25mm machine guns on the speeding armored vehicles. They could completely destroy the armored vehicles and even penetrate the armor of a T-55 tank. Bang! The Heavens Equal Saint Ape punched out and blew up a few armor-piercing bullets 100 meters away from him. His body was forced to take a step back. Then he was enveloped by the shockwave, but he didn't fall down. "Oh my God! He can blow up armor-piercing bullets with his bare hands." Someone exclaimed in disbelief. "You dumb monkey. Don't just stand there and let them hit you. Your advantage is that you can jump high and move fast. Go and rush into the enemy." Jiang Tian didn't make a move. He stood with his hands behind his back and reminded the Heavens Equal Saint Ape. "Also, smash their cannons." "Understood, Master." Even Heavens Equal Saint Ape leaped out and crossed another 10 meters. When he landed, he grabbed the main cannon of a Type 90 main battle tank. Then, he rotated his legs and twisted his waist. With a whoosh, he threw the tank that weighed more than 50 tons. Boom. He threw it out. Boom. The main battle tank flew out like a cannonball and smashed several armored infantry vehicles into scrap metal before exploding. You can't even withstand a single blow. The Heavens Equal Saint Ape jumped out with a big iron club in his hand and landed right in front of the cannon of an armored vehicle. The sound of an armor-piercing bullet being loaded could be heard. The armored vehicle was about to open fire. "Go to hell." The Heavens Equal Saint Ape stretched out his hand and twisted the cannon. Under his monstrous strength, the tough nickel-chromium alloy cannon was turned into a fried dough twist. Boom. Boom. The armor-piercing bullet exploded. The entire cockpit was turned into scrap metal with black smoke billowing out. Then the Heavens Equal Saint Ape waved his big iron club and jumped into the group of armored vehicles. He smashed down with his club and smashed the armored vehicles into scrap metal. With a kick, one or several armored vehicles were sent flying. Hoo-hoo. Rumble. The ground shook. Type 90 main battle tanks moved out one after another. Their tracks crushed rocks and bypassed the paddy fields. Like a flood of steel, they surrounded Jiangtian. These were all heavy tanks that weighed more than 50 tons. They were the third-generation main battle tanks developed by Japan. Their excellent firepower control system was ranked number 1 in the world by the Swedish Weapons Evaluation Organization. Fire. Following the command of the tank regiment's commander, 2nd Lieutenant Takahashi, dozens of tanks within 8 kilometers of Xianxia opened fire at Xianxia. The 120mm smoothbore cannons fired together. Armor-piercing bullets, grenades and armor-shattering bullets. Dozens of shells of all kinds fell like raindrops and blasted toward Xianxia. Indiscriminate fire coverage. This kind of carpet bombing was usually used to target the enemy's important firepower points in a war, but this time it was used on Xianxia. Once all of them exploded, there would be no life within 3 kilometers of Xianxia. Everything would be razed to the ground. In the Toyota off-road vehicle that had been shot into a sieve, Sasaki Kaisha was so scared that she squatted down with her hands covering her head. Her beautiful face was pale and she was trembling. There was only one thought in her mind. I'm dead. This time I'm really going to die with Xianxia. Regardless of whether it was the Blood Clan, werewolves, superpower users, yin-yang magicians, martial Dao grandmasters, sword Dao grandmasters, or even immortal state warriors, they would all be reduced to ashes under the terrifying barrage of cannon fire. President Sasaki. In the army, an officer who was a member of the Sakura Society exclaimed. But it was too late. The shells had already been fired. How could they be retracted? Countless senior officers who knew Sasaki Kaisha lamented in their hearts. In order to kill Kong Teichu, the military has no scruples. President Sasaki will understand us. Only in the command vehicle at the rear, Ikeda sneered when he saw this scene. Kong Teichu, so what if you're powerful? There is no creature on this planet that can survive this kind of firepower. Before he finished speaking through the battlefield's visual monitoring system, he was stunned to see that dozens of shells were suspended hundreds of meters in the air, as if they had hit an invisible barrier and could no longer move forward. Under the rain of bullets suspended hundreds of meters in the air, there was a tall and majestic figure with his right hand open, controlling dozens of cannonballs like a god, and the pale and desperate face of Sasaki Kaisha in the car. What's going on? Is there a problem with the guidance system? All the shells are motionless. Oh my god. Everyone on the battlefield was stunned. It was as if a basin of ice water had been poured over their heads, causing them to feel cold from head to toe. Chapter 453. They forgot to fire the cannons and their minds went blank. Those cannonballs were extremely fast and contained powerful energy. They were guided by the most advanced electronic technology in Japan and had a hit rate of more than 90%. But now, they were all suspended in the air and were even spewing out long flames and white smoke, but they couldn't move forward at all. Modern weapons, how many of them can hurt me? Jiang Tian smiled faintly, his expression relaxed. Although he wasn't afraid of the cannonballs, it was better to end this battle as soon as possible. Why should he put himself in danger? Right now, Jiang Tian was using Thousand Gold Zone Wu's secret technique to control all the cannonballs as if it was his own arm. How is this possible? Inside the command vehicle, Ikeda was terrified as if he had smelled the blood on the scythe in the hands of the Grim Reaper. He suddenly remembered the scene in the movie X-Men, where Magneto controlled dozens of cannonballs. But he still felt that it was impossible. How could it be in the real world? Sogo Wanjin, I control Wanjin. Jiang Tian shouted and waved his hand. The cannonballs slowly turned around and blasted toward the tanks. Rumble. The cannonballs exploded one after another and the armored vehicles and tanks were smashed one after another. They were turned into iron lumps or overturned, instantly losing their combat power. This is even more terrifying than precision guidance. And the angle of the attack. An experienced veteran exclaimed and was dumbfounded. There was a certain probability that the armor-piercing cannonballs could penetrate armor successfully. It had a lot to do with the part of the tank that was hit, the material of the tank's armor and the angle of the cannonball. But the cannonballs that Jiang Tian controlled either hit the weakest part of the tank's armor or blew up the tracks at incredible angles to destroy the mobility of the tank. They also took advantage of the terrain to explode on the side of the tank and directly flipped the tank into a ditch or a paddy field. Instantly, dozens of armored vehicles and tanks lost their combat ability, and more than half of the 28th Mixed Brigade was destroyed. After that, Jiang Tian began to charge toward the tank core. His entire body turned into a bright golden light, and in an instant he was 1,000 meters away. The black iron flying shuttle and little black flying sword were like two cruise missiles, flying up and down in front of Zhang Tian. 2 kilometers. 1 kilometer. 900 meters. 800 meters. Under Zhang Tian's extreme speed, the distance of several kilometers was covered in the blink of an eye. Finally, amidst the rolling cannon fire, under the disbelieving gazes of the crowd, Zhang Tian charged into the midst of the tank group and faced them head-on. Boom! Zhang Tian threw a punch at one of the tank's wheels. The wheels made of fine steel instantly shattered and the tank was like a piece of paper. It flew more than 10 meters into the air, flipped a few times in the air and smashed into another tank with a clang. Both tanks were turned into lumps of metal together. Go! Don't be afraid of him! A commander roared. A few tanks turned around and surrounded Zhang Tian in the center, charging forward. Under such terrifying power, not to mention a living person, even a small mountain would be crushed. Even a large truck would be crushed into a discus in an instant. But to Zhang Tian all of this was useless. Bang! 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 Zhang Tian punched with every step he took. With every punch, a tank would be smashed or blown away. With 10 steps, more than 10 tanks would lose their combat ability immediately. Regardless of whether these tanks were damaged or not, the Japanese soldiers inside were mortals. They would bleed from their orifices and die on the spot. In fact, when Zhang Tian attacked, he had used the secret technique of Jinzongwu. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for him. But even so, it was already very terrifying. After all, this was a 50-ton heavy tank, not a 20-ton light thing like the Lynx. However, the Japanese self-defense forces had also received a death order, and this instead stimulated their ferocity. Numerous armored vehicles and tanks crazily surged toward Zhang Tian. You're courting death. Zhang Tian was also really angry. With a thought, the little black flying sword and the black iron flying shuttle that were floating in the air broke through the air and pierced towards the tank. T. In the ear-piercing sound, the tanks were cut like tofu by blades. Some were pierced through and some were split in half along with the Japanese soldiers inside. The cut surface and the wound surface were as smooth as a mirror and could even reflect a person's shadow. It was obvious that these two magic treasures were extremely sharp. Unlike the 5 to 15 mm steel plate armor of the World War I, the performance of modern tank armor was greatly improved. The hardness of composite armor was 3 times that of ordinary steel, and the hardness of depleted uranium armor was 5 times that of ordinary armor. Now, steel, special ceramics, nickel-chromium alloy and other raw materials were used in tank armor. Not to mention cold weapons, even large-scale thermal weapons might not be able to destroy it. But all of this was useless in front of the little black flying sword and the black iron flying shuttle. The little black flying sword was made of fairy tear black gold, and although the black iron flying shuttle was inferior, it was also made of Gingjin iron essence. These were originally the sharpest things in the world. Not to mention that after many days of sacrificial refining by Zhang Tian, they could cut through everything in the world. Oh my God, what kind of demon is this? He's so powerful. Many Japanese soldiers were so scared that they dropped their guns. They stood there trembling, their faces filled with confusion and fear. Originally, the 28th Mixed Brigade was determined to complete this mission. They even thought it was funny when they learned that they were only dealing with a Wuxia. Why would they need an army to deal with a person? Why would they need these tanks, armored vehicles and fighter jets? Wasn't this overkill? But now Zhang Tian had defeated tens of thousands of soldiers. These tanks and armored vehicles were easily destroyed. Many Japanese soldiers were scared out of their wits. This was not a person. It was 10 times more terrifying than an army. After the tanks received the order to pull away, helicopters were finally dispatched and flew toward Zhang Tian. These dozens of helicopters were the AH-1 armed helicopters known as the North American Cobra. They could perform anti-tank escort, fire support, and armed assault tasks. In fact, this kind of helicopter was a little outdated for the American Army and was gradually replaced by models such as the Apache, Black Hawk, and Comanche. But for the Japanese self-defense forces, it was still a trump card and was bought from the United States at a high price. However, the Cobra was still a classic model. Its lethality and mobility were amazing. In the Gulf War, the helicopter column of this model, even though it had been in service for 30 years, still showed amazing combat effectiveness. It destroyed 97 tanks, 104 armored vehicles and 2 anti-aircraft artillery positions, and it did not suffer any losses. Rumble. Boom. 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 Machine guns and artillery fire covered Xianxia. The dense artillery fire and bullets intertwined into a dense fire net, enveloping Xianxia. In the end, it was like a flood of steel rushing toward Xianxia. Ironfly, don't hurt my master. After destroying more than 20 armored vehicles in a row, the Chitin Saint Ape roared and jumped on a tank. He twisted the extremely strong nickel-chromium alloy barrel and threw it at a cobra like a javelin. Whoosh! A stream of light flashed across the barrel of the cannon, comparable to a cannonball, and hit a helicopter in an instant. Boom! After a loud explosion, the helicopter was engulfed in a ball of fire and then exploded. The debris and propellers flew everywhere. Oh my God! Many Japanese soldiers on the helicopters were dumbfounded. They quickly controlled the helicopters to retreat. You want to run? No one is going to run. Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows and moved his divine will. 2 beams of dark light chased after the helicopters and destroyed 2 of them in a flash. At the same time, he didn't stop. He turned into a beam of golden light and charged toward the army with the equaling Sky Saint Ape, who was waving his club. 1 man and 1 ape were going to destroy thousands of soldiers. Seeing this, Commander Ikeda's face turned pale and cold sweat couldn't be wiped off. He picked up the walkie-talkie and reported the situation to the cabinet minister and the secretary of the Ministry of Defense. Prime Minister, Secretary of the Ministry of Defense, the enemy is too strong. The 28 mixed brigades are no match for them. Should we send out the bombers to drop the depleted uranium bombs? Should we send out the bombers to drop the depleted uranium bombs? Please send out the orders immediately. We can't hold on any longer. Chapter 454. Japanese Cabinet Mansion, Ministry of Defense Conference Room. Sentinels stood in great numbers, armed and heavily guarded. Will he break into Tokyo? He's only 100 kilometers away from Tokyo. Prime Minister Ishii Keiichi was sweating profusely. His right hand trembled violently as he held the teacup. His black-rimmed brown glasses couldn't hide the panic and fear in his eyes. He didn't expect the situation to develop to this point. Kang Taechu actually broke through the 38th Mixed Army Brigade that intercepted him. The 38th Mixed Army Brigade was the trump card that defended the key areas of Kyoto. They were the strongest in terms of equipment and combat power. At this moment, he felt a trace of regret in his heart. As a mature politician, he actually didn't want to provoke Kang Taechu at first. However, the lobbyists of Mitsui and other consortiums repeatedly persuaded him. He didn't want to lose the support of these consortiums. Otherwise, he might step down and lose the support of the people. In addition, the minister of the Ministry of Defense, Kono Taro, was also an extreme right-wing and hawkish figure. He wanted to kill Kang Taechu, and many cabinet ministers supported him. Everyone, I suggest we drop the bombers and the depleted uranium bombs. Kono Taro had a sharp face, a hooked nose and triangular eyes that emitted a cold light. He gave off a ruthless and sinister feeling. The corners of his mouth kept twitching. The depleted uranium bomb was made of a large amount of leftover material after the separation of enriched uranium. The main component was low radioactive uranium-238. Uranium was a high-density material, and its combustion products were radioactive and toxic. The depleted uranium bomb could penetrate 80 centimeters of steel plate. When the warhead exploded, the core explosive point could generate a temperature of more than 10,000 degrees, melting steel instantly. Moreover, the uranium oxide smoke produced by the combustion could spread up to 40 kilometers away. Due to its radioactive and chemical toxicity, it would further cause secondary damage to creatures in a large area. You're crazy. We're in Japan. The Minister of Economy, Industry and Industry shouted. This will turn the Fukushima area into a barren land. We won't be able to explain this to the people and the international community. That's right, Mr. Kono. There are hundreds of thousands of residents within 40 kilometers. Are they all going to be buried with Kang Taechu? The Minister of Justice also protested. I think it's necessary to attack Kang Taechu. Kawano Taro slammed the table and argued with reason. He said angrily, do you know that Kang Taechu can use curses and a flying weapon to kill people from several kilometers away? He could plant such an evil curse without coming into contact with anyone. Deputy Prime Minister Fujisai Mitsui Takuri, and other important military and political figures have already been cursed. You could say that if he wanted to, he could take our lives at any time. If he planted a curse on us, we would all become his puppets. I would like to ask everyone at that time, will Japan still be Japan? The Heavenly Emperor was still the Heavenly Emperor? No, it will become Kong Techu's country. The more he spoke, the louder his voice became. In the end, his voice was hoarse as he waved his hands frantically, almost roaring and howling. Everyone was stunned by his imposing manner and was speechless for a moment. Kawano Taro continued with a solemn expression. The most important thing is dignity and glory. The dignity and glory of the Yamato people, everyone. He waved his hands like an eloquent speaker and said passionately, Kong Techu dominated Japan this time, killing countless Japanese overlords, military and political figures and industry giants. If we don't fight to the end and make him pay the price in blood, what will we do? Where is the dignity and glory of the Yamato people? In the international community, we will become the laughing stock of the world. The nearest supersonic bomber will only need 20 minutes to reach the battlefield. With an air-to-ground missile with a range of 460 kilometers and a precise shot, Kong Techu will die without a burial place within a minute. I agree with the use of depleted uranium bombs. Prime Minister Ishii was convinced. He frowned and asked with difficulty, but how will we explain to the international community and the people? We will be strongly condemned by the international community, impeached by the parliament, and even have civil strife. There is a nuclear power plant not far from where the battle broke out. What if we say that the explosion was a nuclear accident? Kawano Taro smiled eerily. Well, that works. The Minister of Internal Affairs nodded and said, if we provide timely disaster relief, we will be praised by the people and the international community. The other ministers also nodded in agreement. Ishii Kiichi said, okay, then we'll do as you say. Kawano Taro's face was filled with joy. He picked up the walkie-talkie and was about to give orders. Don't you want to think about it seriously? Do you really want to bomb my husband? A soft but cold voice suddenly sounded out of nowhere. Who are you? How did you get in? Everyone was shocked and stood up one after another. They didn't know when a graceful figure had appeared at the door. It was a very beautiful woman. Her black hair reached her shoulders and her small face was snow white. Her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. She was wearing a short white windbreaker, black casual pants, a white shirt and black high heels. She looked like a city girl from Ginza, Tokyo. However, she had an aura that looked down on the world and dominated the world. They couldn't see such an aura on a royal princess. Whoosh. 8 guards in the meeting room pulled out their pistols and surrounded the woman. They loaded their guns and were ready to fire. Oh, I'm Kong Techu's wife. How did I get in? Is it difficult to get in? It's not much different from a park. Zhou Xian wasn't afraid at all. She smiled and said, I'm here to order everyone to cease fire immediately. Otherwise, all of you will die. Everyone was sweating and felt cold all over. The cabinet mansion was one of the most powerful institutions in Japan. There was a regiment of elite guards, radars, heat sensors, and so on. How did this woman get in? They didn't seem to hear anything. With a ferocious expression, Kawano Taro roared, how dare she? Guards, kill her. He then took out his walkie-talkie and called for reinforcements from the soldiers outside. A few guards didn't even have time to open fire. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A few wind blades appeared and blood splattered. All of them fell to the ground. How terrifying. She's the same as Kong Techu. Everyone was shocked to the point they were dumbstruck, and their faces went ghastly pale as waves of palpitations arose in their hearts. They were like cowering quails as they staggered back. Even the hawkish minister who wanted to use depleted uranium to kill Jiang Tian shut his mouth and didn't dare to say a word. Although they were in high positions, they hadn't been through war. They could hide in the back and give orders, but in the face of the threat of death they were really scared. Some of the soldiers and ministers of the Ministry of Security had killed people when they were young. They had seen some bloody scenes, but they had never seen such a terrifying scene. This woman didn't even touch the guards. She just waved her hand a few times and killed them. Moreover, the guards' bulletproof vests and helmets were shattered. There were even marks more than a few centimeters deep on the wall and the marble floor. Her lethality was too terrifying. How long do we have to wait? Do you want me to kill you one by one? Zhou Xian smiled faintly, but that smile was extremely terrifying in everyone's eyes. Don't kill me. Keiichi trembled. Mrs. Jiang, please calm down. I'll give the order now. Immediately withdraw the troops and cease fire. Prime Minister. You can't. Kawano Taro roared angrily. He was very unwilling. He only needed to make a phone call and Kong Teichu would be dead. Go to hell. Zhao Xueqing didn't waste any time. She sent out a wind blade and Kawano Taro shut up. His body was still standing there but he didn't move. Suddenly, a line of blood appeared on his neck. It was getting bigger and bigger. Then his head was flushed with blood and his body fell to the ground. For a moment, everyone was speechless. They didn't dare to resist anymore. Keiichi hurriedly called the front line personally. Withdraw the troops. Cease fire. On the battlefield, Jiang Tian and Qi Tian pushed their way through, overturning tanks and destroying armored vehicles. They were like two demonic gods. Everywhere they passed, the mountains shook, the ground shook, black smoke billowed and the scorched earth cracked. Corpses were piled up everywhere and the remains of weapons were strewn everywhere. It was a complete mess. This battlefield was like Azura's hell. In the blink of an eye, the man and the ape had arrived near the command vehicle in just 10 minutes, as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. In the armored command vehicle at the back, Ikeda was still holding the phone. He was trembling as he asked for instructions from his superiors. We can't hold on any longer. Please tell us if we should send out the bombers and use the depleted uranium bombs. Please tell us. He was panicking and his voice sounded like he was about to cry. Cease fire immediately. Withdraw the troops. This is an order from the Prime Minister. Cease fire immediately and withdraw the troops. The instructions from his superiors finally came from the phone. Ikeda was relieved and quickly issued the order to the entire army. In an instant, many tanks and armored vehicles stopped at the same time. White flags fluttered in the wind. Countless Japanese officers threw away their weapons and knelt on the ground, begging, "We lost. We don't want to fight anymore. We don't want to fight anymore. Your Excellency Master Kong, the Japanese military is willing to submit to you. You can do whatever you want in Japan." Ikeda Xiaozhua got out of the car and walked to Jiang Tian while trembling. Then he bowed deeply and lowered his arrogant head. "Oh sure. But you can go to hell." Jiang Tian waved his hand and cut the most elite major of Japan's mixed brigade in half along with the armored command vehicle. Then, under the gaze of thousands of soldiers of the 28th Mixed Brigade, he swaggered away with the Qi Tian battle ape and went straight to the Miyamoto family's old mansion. Breaking the army of 1,000, killing the junior advisor and then leaving in a huff. Jiang Tian was invincible all the way like a war god in the legends. This battle shocked the world. Chapter 455. 10 minutes after Jiang Tian left, many Japanese soldiers on the battlefield did not dare to stand up. They were still kneeling on the ground, unable to believe what had happened. Dumbfounded, they looked at the remnants of the helicopters that had been pierced through by Jiang Tian, the hundreds of armored vehicles that had been smashed into pieces and the tanks that had been overturned, Ikeda Xiaozu's body that had been cut in half, and the messy battlefield that was covered in blood. All of this was like a nightmare. Everyone felt that their worldview had collapsed, and they could not accept that the war had ended in such a way. Originally, many soldiers of the self-defense forces treated this mission as a joke. An army of thousands against one person, if that was not a joke, what was it? Ikeda was also determined to succeed and saw this mission as a stepping stone for his promotion and salary. Even Sasaki Kaisha knew how powerful Jiang Tian was and thought that he had no chance of fighting the army head-on. It was lucky that he could break out of the encirclement and save his life. But everyone was wrong. Jiang Tian, with a big ape, resisted the machine gun fire and was not afraid of the rocket bombardment. He slapped the tanks and armored vehicles away, penetrated the steel torrent of the entire 28th Mixed Brigade, killed the commander and left. This was the Kyoto Defense Brigade, an elite force responsible for the safety of the capital. They were defeated by a man and an ape just like that. "Mr. Jiang, are you not feeling well?" After picking up Jiang Tian, Sasaki Kaisha drove the car and continued to drive to the old house of the Miyamoto family. He looked at Jiang Tian carefully and there was a trace of concern in his voice. "It's okay." Jiang Tian closed his eyes and rested, but he was complaining in his heart. When the tanks fired dozens of shells at the same time, it was very difficult for him to use Mangekyo Sogo. It consumed a lot of blood essence and he even suffered some internal injuries. After all, if it was ordinary metal it would be fine. The speed of those shells was too large and too fast. Fortunately, Chinger acted in time. Otherwise, if the bomber had dropped the depleted uranium bomb, he might not have been able to withstand it. At this moment, Sasaki Heise's phone rang. She picked up the call and smiled at Zhang Tian. Mr. Jiang, the Japanese officials have instructed me that from now on, Mr. Jiang is Japan's most distinguished guest. We have to open the doors for you. Zhang Tian smiled and said, Sasaki, you should be able to see that I'm seriously injured. Why didn't you tell the Japanese self-defense forces? One more wave of bombing and I might die. Mr. Jiang's magic power is heaven-defying, and your spiritual perception is astonishing. Can anything I say escape your eyes? Sasaki Aisha smiled sweetly, like a blooming white magnolia, shining brightly as bright as the spring sun. Then a trace of darkness flashed in her eyes and she said with a sorrowful expression, I understand now. Just like you said, martial arts experts are insignificant in the eyes of politicians and tycoons. Wealth, power, and modern weapons are what they value the most. They don't care about my life, but you, whether willing or not, objectively saved me. So I am grateful to you and I admire you. It seems that you are not an inflexible person. With this sentence I will spare your life. Zhang Tian nodded slightly. An hour later they arrived at the Miyamoto family's old house. Miyamoto Shimpo had already led many Abe family members to wait outside the old house. When they saw Zhang Tian get out of the car, a group of people quickly walked up to him and knelt on the ground. They trembled and said, We welcome Master Kang's visit. The Japanese have always worshipped the strong. Even if it is a life-and-death feud, as long as you beat them to the point of despair, they will let go of the past and kowtow to beg for mercy. This kind of national character is reflected in military and diplomatic affairs. Their attitude toward the United States is the most persuasive. Today I see that it is indeed so. Zhang Tian was pleased to see that there was no resentment or hatred on their faces, only deep fear, confusion, panic, and uneasiness. I heard that the Miyamoto family is famous in Japan, and that you have a lot of treasures. Today I am here to pay my respects. Thank you for your hospitality. Zhang Tian chuckled. His expression was amiable, as if he was a leader who was inspecting the countryside and chatting with old farmers. Beside him, Sasaki Kaisha was speechless. He was obviously here to rob them, but he made it sound so dignified. This Master Kong was really hypocritical. Master Kong, this is our honor. We have been waiting for a long time. Please come in, come in. Miyamoto Shimpo stood up and bowed with a flattering smile as he led the way in front. Miyamoto Geniki was his elder, but he didn't have the slightest idea of revenge at this time. Facing a peerless demon who could destroy the 28 mixed brigades and defeat the Japanese cabinet, he could only submit. This was a castle-like city that had existed since the Warring States period. The city walls were high and there were arrow stacks covered with moss. There was also a fortress inside, paved with bluestone, and a continuous line of palaces. The walls were full of sword marks and it was full of the vicissitudes of time. This place used to be heavily guarded. Many masters of the Sakura Society and the Miyamoto family were stationed here, and they were equipped with modern weapons. Normally not even a bird could fly in. But now they had all abandoned their weapons and knelt on the ground, allowing Zhang Tian to walk in as if there was no one around. Zhang Tian walked in unimpeded. Wherever he passed, many Japanese overlords knelt down and kowtowed as if they had seen a god. Finally he entered a spacious and bright hall. More than a dozen shelves of various sizes were arranged in 6 rows. Inside the boxes were the heavenly materials and earthly treasures that the Miyamoto family and the Sakura Society had accumulated over the years. Because this old house is rarely known, the cultivation resources that the Sakura Society has accumulated over the years are hidden here together with the Miyamoto family's treasures. On the other side, Sasaki Haisha bent down, lowered his rebellious head and reported submissively. The treasures of the Sakura Society are truly extraordinary. Zhang Tian's gaze swept across these cultivation resources, and his eyes gradually became scorching hot. He was very shocked. Stalwart grass, 300 years old, can be refined into meridian nourishing pills. It has a miraculous effect on damaged meridians. Sunflower 200 years old. It has the power of water and can stimulate the potential of water-type constitution. Qilong tendon, a demon beast with a lifespan of 200 years. It can be used to make whips or ropes. It has a buff effect. 5 elements cauldron. Judging from the inscriptions, it should be a treasure of Wuxia's cauldron school. It can be used to refine pills with half the effort. 7 luminary stone. This is amazing. It's an extraterrestrial meteorite. Can absorb and convert the power of the stars. It's unbelievable. Mountain turtle shell. I didn't expect them to have 4 pieces that haven't been refined. If they were used to carve defensive artifacts, each piece would probably be able to withstand a missile's firepower. It can withstand a pinnacle immortal's attack. Talismans. Maoshan sect, Longhu Mountain, Southeast Asian shaman sect. Although the carvings aren't very good, the materials used are really good. They're all made from demon beast skin and blood. They can still be used. Jiang Tian looked around as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. The smile on his face grew wider and wider and he could no longer hide it. The Sakura Society had a history of several hundred years. It was established during the Meiji Restoration. Since World War I, it had been like a harvester, plundering all over East Asia and Southeast Asia. Wherever it passed, it plucked feathers from geese and left nothing behind. Its wealth was not something that the Shinong School or the Singapore Chinese Society could compare to. Spirit herbs, rare metals, treasured sabers, treasured swords, shields, armors, demon beasts' furs, jade essence stones, and so on. There were so many cultivation resources that they were overwhelmed and dazzled. There were also some famous paintings and antiques. Any one of them was worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of Wuxia dollars. It was enough to stun a major collector. Those were not worth mentioning to Jiang Tian. After all, he was not short of money. What he cared about was cultivation resources. Seeing that, Jiang Tian was very pleased. It was a rewarding trip. He had not wasted his time in this battle. His gains were definitely more than 10 times what he had gained in Singapore and Southern Korea. However, Jiang Tian was still thinking about the map fragments of the ruins of immortality. In the end, he scanned the area with his divine sense and found that 3 of the map fragments were sandwiched between an antique painting. It seemed that Miyamoto Genichi also attached great importance to the map fragments. He thought that the map fragments might be snatched away, so he disguised himself like that. However, how could such a clumsy disguise escape Jiang Tian's divine sense? Pfft. Jiang Tian took out the famous painting, drank a mouthful of purified water and sprayed it on it. Then he gently opened it and took out the 3 map fragments. The edges of these 3 map fragments could be pieced together with the map fragments that he had obtained before. The map fragments of the ruins of immortality had already vaguely revealed its full appearance. However, Jiang Tian was not in a hurry. He picked a few more cultivation materials that he could use now and put them into his storage ring together with the 3 map fragments. Then he said to Sasaki Aisha, "Help me get a container. Collect all of them and ship them to Jinling in Wuxia." There were too many materials. They could already fill 3 rooms. His storage ring was a little overwhelmed. "Yes, Master Kong." Sasaki Aisha thought that this Master Kong was really ruthless. However, he did not dare to disobey and quickly bowed in agreement. "Oh right, sort out those ordinary antiques. I don't want them. Give them all to the Wuxia Museum." Most of the antique paintings were plundered from Wuxia. They were worth hundreds of yuan. Although Jiang Tian wasn't interested in these things since he was here, he couldn't let these Japanese off so easily. He definitely had to squeeze them dry with a wave of 5-star physics, scouring them clean and not leaving anything behind. "Yes, Master Kong." Sasaki Aisha went out to make arrangements. When he returned, he bowed and said, "Mr. Jiang, the Japanese Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Mitsui Takori and many other leaders of the conglomerates have come to visit Mr. Jiang. Your wife is also here." Chinger had already walked in. She smiled sweetly and said, "Hubby, this battle has really made you famous internationally." "Ah, it's just a small test. There are only a few thousand people. It's nothing. How can they be a match for your hubby?" Jiang Tian held Chinger's little hand and suddenly coughed. As long as he held her warm and soft hand, Jiang Tian felt very peaceful and happy in his heart. It was as if she had a power that made Jiang Tian feel peaceful. Zhao Xueqing's face froze. She said in a low voice, "You're injured? Your Sea of Qi is a little damaged." Chapter 456. Looks like I underestimated modern firearms. Zhang Tian shook his head with a bitter smile and sighed with a grave expression. If it weren't for your timely intervention, I would have been killed if the depleted uranium bomb had really been dropped. So I have to thank Madam. At the end he laughed again. How do you want to thank me? My wife is a supreme beauty, the most powerful woman in the world. What can I do for you? Zhang Tian looked melancholy and then suddenly smiled mischievously. I can only thank you in bed. Do your best. You're so talkative. Nothing good can come out of your filthy mouth. Master Kong, I think you're just a rogue Jiang. Zhao Xueqing's pretty face was slightly red, and she glared at him with her clear, beautiful eyes. If I'm not a rogue, how can I make babies? The great plan of mankind's reproduction depends on hooligans. Zhang Tian said with a smile. You're not done yet, are you? Zhao Xueqing twisted his ear and stared at him with her watery eyes. Are you trying to murder your husband? I can't accept this. When my cultivation is at its peak, why don't you try touching me? Zhang Tian allowed his wife to pull his ears as he protested in dissatisfaction. Is this still the invincible Grandmaster Jiang who dominated Japan, shook the army and dominated the world? Next to him Sasaki Haisha was dumbfounded. Before, Zhang Tian had always given her the impression that he was ruthless, aloof and looked down on human life. He was as powerful as a god and as cold as a devil. She had never thought that Zhang Tian would have such a warm and loving side to him. She actually felt a faint sense of regret. If he hadn't been so cold, arrogant and hostile towards Zhang Tian from the start, perhaps he would have had a completely different ending. For a moment she was lost in her own thoughts. After messing around with Qinger for a while, Zhang Tian finally came to a hall to meet with many Japanese politicians. Mr. Jiang, today the 28th Mixed Brigade was conducting a live-fire military exercise in Fukushima Prefecture and accidentally injured Mr. Jiang. On behalf of the Japanese cabinet and His Majesty, I sincerely apologize to Mr. Jiang. Seeing Zhang Tian, Prime Minister Ishii immediately stepped forward and bowed respectfully, using the most respectful tone he had ever used in his life. He lowered his head and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He didn't dare to look into Zhang Tian's eyes. Everyone at the side felt a sense of sadness. Prime Minister Ishii had never looked so nervous and fearful, not even when he was paying his respects to the emperor. After all, they were a constitutional monarchy and the emperor was just a spiritual symbol. Greetings, Master Kong. Mitsui Takori and dozens of politicians and tycoons all bowed to Zhang Tian. They were all trembling in fear as if there was a man-eating demon standing in front of them. Kong Taichu had defeated the 28th Mixed Brigade, and Mrs. Jiang had attacked the cabinet and killed the Minister of Defense. Ordinary people didn't know the truth, but these members of the upper class couldn't hide it from them. For a moment they were all in awe of Zhang Tian. People like Miyamoto Genichi, Momoi Ryutaro, and the 6 Shikigami were still a bit far away from them. However, the Minister of Defense, Kono Taro, was someone they chatted with on a daily basis. This kind of shock was too real. In addition, many of them had been cursed by Zhang Tian, and they had seen Zhang Tian's flying sword kill people from 100 meters away. This really scared them. It meant that their lives were in Zhang Tian's hands. It's okay, it's just a misunderstanding. Zhang Tian understood that this was just diplomatic language, but he had already shocked Japan, so there was no need to take it seriously. He just nodded slightly. Ishigichi smiled obsequiously and said, "We hope that Master Kong can stay in Japan for a few more days. We will accompany Master Kong for a tour." "That's not necessary." Zhang Tian shook his head and said, "I'm going back to Japan soon." "That's too bad." Ishikichi said so, but he was so happy that he almost jumped up. With the blessings of the gods, this demonic god was finally sent away. Zhang Tian looked at Ishii Yurin, Su-i and Song Jigang in the crowd and said lightly, "From now on Yamaguchi-gumi, Sumitomo and Inagawakai will all be merged into fucking gang. They will listen to Su-i and Song Jigang's orders. Anyone who disobeys will be killed." "Yes. We will follow Master Kang's orders." Ishii Yurin and the other leaders all bowed and agreed. "Thank you, Master Kong." Su-i and Song Jigang's faces were filled with joy and gratitude. This way fucking gang would become the biggest gang in Japan. This was what it meant to reach the heavens in a single step. "Hubby, why don't we just get rid of it or let Su-i and Song Jigang take control of Sakura Kai?" Zhou Xian asked telepathically. We can't do that. So what if we get rid of it? Japan is a powerful country in the world after all. It's impossible that they don't have martial arts organizations. Jiang Tian said lightly with his divine sense. Sasaki Kaisha's attitude towards Wuxia has changed. He's more pro-China and left-wing. It's better to maintain the status quo than to let others control it. There are too many strange people in Sakura Kai. Su Yi and Song Jigang don't have the ability to control them. If the two of them control it, I'm afraid you and I will have to stay in Japan for 3 years to help them stabilize their rule. Do we have the time? That's true. Qinger immediately understood. Let fucking gang control many gangs, increase their strength and expand their influence in Japan. It's equivalent to planting a seed of pro-China in Japan. At least they can protect the rights of the Chinese and prevent them from being bullied. That's enough. Jiang Tian said telepathically. These Japanese devils have really started a war. In the long formation base, Cao Shixiang hadn't slept since Jiang Tian decided to stay in Japan. His face was solemn and his dark circles were very deep. The ashtray was full of little panda cigarette butts. Thick sparrow tongues floated in the army green teacup full of tea stains. It was dark brown like coffee. Damn it, the Japanese are really attacking. And they're attacking without any warning. Despicable. Chief, what should we do? Kong Taichu is too reckless. If he dies this time, it'll hurt his loved ones and make his enemies happy. Even if Kong Taichu is an immortal state expert, he doesn't have the strength to fight an army. This is really dangerous. Some of them were filled with righteous indignation, some were panicking, some were shaking their heads regretfully, and some were sighing. Yi Zhantian, who had just returned to the country and was still sitting on his butt, was in a daze. He sighed sadly. I shouldn't have come back. I should have stayed by his side. Nonsense. If Kong Taichu dies, you will be sacrificed. Who will be in charge of the Wuxia martial arts community? Cao Shixiang slammed the table angrily. After the battle began, news from the intelligence agency made the meeting room very noisy. The 28th Mixed Brigade has surrounded Kong Taichu in the suburbs of Fukushima Prefecture. Major Ikeda has given the order to open fire. Jiang Taichu and an unknown life form charged into the armored vehicles and the tank team, destroying 20 tanks and more than 30 armored vehicles without a single scratch. The number of tanks destroyed is still increasing. Kong Taichu destroyed 3 helicopters. Kong Taichu killed his way to the rear of the army and approached the command center. Major Ikeda might use the bombers. The bombers have withdrawn. The Japanese government has declared a truce. After Kong Taichu killed Ikeda, he headed west. When the news came in, everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe it. Then a smile of ecstasy appeared on their faces. Bang! Black Tortoise listened carefully. Suddenly he was so shocked that he fell off the swivel chair and caused a burst of laughter. Tang Hongtu couldn't believe it. He won. Kong Taichu won. How is that possible? Cao Shixiang also found it hard to believe. He frowned and glared at the intelligence officer. Is your information reliable or not? Could it be that you have been manipulated into giving false information? An old man with a general star on his shoulder also frowned and said, It's not like we haven't tried special combat with martial artists before. Not to mention Zhang Long, even the more powerful Long formation and the 4 spiritual generals can only wear bulletproof vests and engage in guerrilla warfare. Their main goal is to accurately snipe and kill the commander. However, they can't directly attack the army. They can't withstand heavy machine gun fire. Moreover, this is the 28th Mixed Brigade. They are equipped with rocket launchers, tanks, and armored vehicles. How is that possible? The intelligence officer raised his voice in dissatisfaction. Not only does this have our intelligence, but our computer attack and defense team has also intercepted intelligence from a small country. The intelligence from both sides is completely consistent. We can't possibly make a mistake with both of them. I think it's possible. Kong Taichu also encountered the police in Singapore. He also destroyed the armored vehicles. Black Tortoise was Kong Taichu's die-hard fan. What a joke. The old man slammed the table. In terms of numbers, equipment, and firepower, how can the police compare to the 28th Mixed Brigade? Do you have any common sense? Then the intelligence officer pressed his earpiece and was shocked again. He said in a trembling voice, According to the latest information, the Japanese army has begun to retreat in an orderly manner. The loss has been reported to the Ministry of Defense. The result is 52 Type 90 tanks, 86 armored vehicles and 15 Cobra helicopters. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell into dead silence. Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They looked at each other and saw the horrified expression on each other's faces. A day after the incident, the aftermath of Kong Taechu and the 28th Mixed Brigade of the Japanese Self-Defense Force began to spread gradually. In the end, the leaders of many countries who received the news from the intelligence department and even the satellite photos were dumbfounded. No one could imagine that in the age of chaos, where spiritual energy was scarce, there was actually someone who relied on cold weapons to fight against a mixed brigade with modern equipment, defeating the army, killing the generals and leaving. This was completely beyond the reach of human beings. Even the immortal state warriors in the secret records might not have such combat power. We must support the palace of gods. Maybe our 12 main gods can also have such combat power. A senior official of the European Union suggested. Such individual combat power was like a weapon of mass destruction and could be reused repeatedly. Who wouldn't be jealous? It could be upgraded to the level of national strategy. Chapter 457. In view of the battle between Kong Taechu and the 28th Mixed Brigade of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, we hope that the 13 top biology and science schools in the U.S. will set up a research team to crack the mystery of the human body and mass-produce Level X and even Level X arcanists. Such a topic was sent to the U.S. President's desk by Blue Storm, and then to the generals in the Pentagon. How can we suppress someone as strong as Kong Taechu? If he comes to the U.S., what should we do? In the Pentagon, a general asked with a frown. Maybe we can use electromagnetic cannons and ball-shaped lightning cannons to defeat him. And our soldiers must be equipped with kinetic skeletons. An arms expert pondered for a long time before answering with uncertainty. The U.S. had always been known for its advanced technology, and its research on genetic modification of humans and individual weapons was at the forefront. But at this moment, everyone was also facing a formidable enemy, trying to figure out how to kill someone as strong as Kong Taechu. In Moscow's Red Square, the wind and snow danced. Rows of troops were on high alert on the streets. In the Kremlin, the Russian emperor looked at the intelligence provided by the Northern Army's commander and the Winter Soldier Organization. Perhaps, this is the beginning of the next round of the arms race. I want to increase the military expenditure of the Northern Army region. The Winter Soldier Organization has fallen too far behind. His sharp eyes looked toward the east, toward the country with a long history, and gazed at the mysterious figure. One man can shake a country. Our master is strong, mighty and domineering. After hearing the news, the president of Singapore, Lee Hsien Loong, had completely become Master Kang's die-hard fan. He excitedly ordered his chief secretary, build a statue at the National Square. Put it side by side with the Singapore Liberation Monument. For the people to worship. For a time, the European Union, Russia, the US and many other major countries in the world. The military and intelligence agencies of each country were paying close attention to this matter, discussing countermeasures to deal with this sudden change. The battle between Jiang Tian and the 28th Mixed Brigade of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces in Fukushima Prefecture shook the world. Although the Japanese government tried their best to cover up the truth, claiming that it was just a military exercise accident, and blocked all related news on the internet, the major countries that received the information also kept it a secret. After all, this incident was too shocking. It could even topple the current social order. However, this news still reached the dark world. It was like a nuclear bomb had been dropped and the world was turned upside down. Kong Taechu has defeated the Japanese self-defense forces, using cold weapons to fight against hundreds of tanks and armored vehicles, and using flying swords to cut down several Cobra helicopters. When the headlines appeared on the Darknet forum, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. In the long history, even in the era when cold weapons were king, there were only a dozen records of immortal state warriors fighting against an army. As for the rise of firearms, the immortal state warriors either chose to hide or cooperate with the military. There was almost no precedent of an immortal state warrior fighting with the military. After the birth of nuclear weapons, the world of cultivation became even more silent. Nuclear weapons. The most destructive weapon on this planet was like the sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of all the cultivators, making them completely lose the courage to fight the army and challenge the secular regime. Today Kang Techu had defeated an army. Furthermore, it was the 28th Mixed Brigade, which was known as the Imperial Guard. This news was like a legend. It was shocking and hard to believe. Maybe we have witnessed history. This is the beginning of a new era, the revival of cultivation. This post was pinned by the administrator, and the title was in red and bold with special effects. The author was the most authoritative observer on the forum. In the post, the observer summarized all the information in detail, showing the overall equipment and firepower of the 28th Mixed Brigade at that time and analyzed the whole process. The giant ape that is said to be 7 or 8 meters tall is probably a kind of monster. Its weapon, the big club, can create lightning and thunder. It should be a Thunder Dharma treasure. Kang Techu's spell should be able to control the metal element. He should be able to use the flying sword in Wuxia's Xianxia legend. This was a summary post, the most comprehensive analysis of Kang Techu's combat power. For a moment, all the dark overlords were excited. The world of cultivation is about to revive. A new era of cultivation is coming. In the future, technology and cultivation will be on par. The dark world will rise. Every country will pay more attention to the cultivation of cultivators. Of course, they will also increase their control. Kang Techu is invincible. Everyone went crazy as if they had been injected with chicken blood. The posts appeared one after another, and the titles were more explosive than the last. In addition to the excitement, some people were also evaluating Kang Techu's combat power. I believe that Kang Techu is now qualified to fight with Zeus, the Blood Ancestor, and the Wolf Ancestor. Is Kang Techu invincible? Is he the most powerful creature on this planet? Everyone was discussing heatedly. We can't tell if Kang Techu is invincible or not. At the end of the discussion, the observer spoke. But no matter if it's Zeus or the Dark World's overlords, they have never had such a battle record. And Kang Techu's journey is not over yet. He's still moving forward. There is only one end to his journey: invincible. As soon as he said this, everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone saw the possibility of Kang Techu's shocking, invincible. At this time, Jiang Tian had already boarded the cruise ship and embarked on the journey back to his country. Mr. Jiang, we hope that Miss Sasaki Kaisha can learn martial arts from Mr. Jiang. Before leaving, the Japanese Prime Minister suggested with a smile. Of course, Sasaki will still be the president of the Sakura Society. She can command everything remotely. Looking at the obedient Sasaki Kaisha, Jiang Tian immediately understood. They were sending Sasaki Kaisha to Jiang Tian as a hostage and letting Jiang Tian control her. This way Jiang Tian would be at ease and not kill them. There were many such practices in history. For example, Ying Zheng's father, the mutant, was sent to Zhao State as a hostage. While Jiang Tian was thinking, Sasaki Kaisha, who was wearing a kimono, was already kneeling on the ground. She lowered her head, revealing a snow-white neck that made people daydream. She stammered and begged, "Master, please take me in. Kaisha is willing to be your slave and serve you for life." I'll allow it. In the end, Jiang Tian nodded. It was not because he valued Sasaki Kaisha, but because he wanted to use her to suppress the Japanese martial arts world. Thank you, Master Kong, for your permission. Sasaki Kaisha was overjoyed when she heard this. Her beautiful face could not contain the joy as she kowtowed repeatedly. In her opinion, many politicians and tycoons in Japan had been cursed by Jiang Tian. The Japanese government did not have the courage to challenge Jiang Tian, so Jiang Tian naturally did not have the need to kill her. However, if she stayed by Jiang Tian's side and received his guidance, even if it was just a few casual pointers, her cultivation would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. When she returned to China, she would be gold-plated and advanced. She would definitely become the #1 master in Japan and sit firmly in the position of the president. Jiang Tian did not plan to return to Wuxia immediately. Instead, he took the cruise ship that he had given to Chinger from Yokohama, then went to South Korea, Seoul, Jeju Island and other places for a tour, then to Hong Kong and finally returned to Zhonghai City in Wuxia. On the cruise ship, all the service staff were provided by the Hilton family in America. The service was very good. Sasaki Kaisha took another transport ship to deliver many Dharma treasures and cultivation resources to Zhonghai in Wuxia. Jiang Tian first accompanied Qing'er to sunbathe for a few days in Jeju Island, then arrived in Seoul a week later. Jiang Tian happened to run into a group of Chinese businessmen visiting Korea, so he met with them: Xingyu, Li Jianqi and Li Jinju. Congratulations, Grandmaster Jiang. Congratulations to Grandmaster Jiang for achieving great fame. Li Jianqi had already received the secret report that Jiang Tian had defeated the 28th Mixed Brigade of the Japan Self-Defense Forces, so he respected Jiang Tian even more, as if he had seen a god. Master, thank goodness you came back safely. I was so worried. If something happened to you, I don't want to live anymore. Li Jinju was overjoyed as tears rolled down her cheeks. Jiang Tian, the results of this year's Forbes billionaires list are out. Do you know how many people from our side made it? At the banquet, Yi Gufeng held Jiang Tian's hand and smiled. I don't know about the others, but I know that Uncle Yi is definitely on the list. Jiang Tian smiled and said, well, I'm 36th with a net worth of 21 billion. Yi Gufeng smiled, but there seemed to be a hint of mockery at the corner of his mouth. I guess Mr. Ye's net worth is twice that of the people on the list, right? Jiang Tian saw his expression and understood. The calculation of the Forbes billionaires list was actually very simple. It was based on the value of the shares of listed companies, but for a veteran like old Yi who knew how much wealth he had in secret, it was not as simple as a few listed companies. Yi Gufeng smiled and said, but your mother, Ms. Zhang Wanqing, is also on the list. She's in 10th place with a net worth of 60 billion. In response, Jiang Tian only smiled faintly. The Jiang family's net worth was not that simple. If they entered the Korean and Japanese markets, their market value would at least double. Not to mention that he controlled trillions of assets himself. It could be said that all the people on the Wuxia billionaires list combined were only on par with him. Chapter 458. Other than that, Bai Choufei, Tai Ming Huang, Tang Xiaozi, and Su Ruoqing are also on the list. Almost all of them are in the top 50. Especially Tang Xiaozi. He is now in control of 50 billion assets and is ranked 14th. Yi Gufeng said. So, these youngsters are starting to take control of their families? Jiang Tian asked with a smile. The new generation will replace the old. Yi Gufeng smiled and said. Sigh. Too bad Ziwei wants to take over Medicine King Group. If not, I will have to retire too. Yi Gufeng knows what these families are thinking. These youngsters are about the same age as Jiang Tian and they can talk to him. If not, these family heads will not be able to hand over their positions so quickly. They are doing this because they want to rely on Jiang Tian. Yi Ziwei, who was wearing a red evening gown, smiled and said, Dad, forget it. I won't go back to a small place like Haizhou. Furthermore, I am not interested in shipping. That's right. My temple is too small to accommodate a great bodhisattva like you. You will have a better future in Medicine King Group. Yi Gufeng said with a wry smile. After a series of twists and turns, the relationship between father and daughter had now been mended. Yi Ziwei chose to forgive him. Jiang Tian looked at Tang Xiaozi and the rest and smiled. Not bad. Do your best. There's a high chance of success. It's all thanks to Master Kong. If not, we will not be on the list. Come. Let's toast to Grandmaster Jiang. They all looked at Jiang Tian in awe, raising their wine glasses with apologetic smiles. They are not trying to flatter Feng Yu. They are expressing their gratitude. All of them are in control of tens of billions of assets. But that is the value of their listed companies and not their personal net worth. In terms of personal net worth, each of them is only worth 10 billion. After following Jiang Tian, they had attacked the three most influential families in Jinlin and made a fortune. After Jiang Tian took control of Singapore and South Korea, they expanded their market to Singapore and South Korea. Orders flooded in and their performance skyrocketed. The value of their listed companies increased, and their personal wealth increased by several folds. Tang Xiaozi twirled his Buddhist prayer beads and put his palms together. His face was filled with sincerity and solemnity as he said, Believe in Master Kong and you will have eternal life. Money is but a mere worldly possession. The key is that Master Kong will lead us to see the truth of the world. We will see ourselves all living beings in the world. Tang Xiaozi was now in Huaxia's business circle. He was very unique. He was bald, wearing prayer beads and wearing a Tang suit. He was known as the Buddhist business master, and had even published a few books. Xiaozi truly believes in Master Kong. He donated another 3 temples. That Buddha statue is exactly the same as Mr. Jiang. Su Ruoqing couldn't help but laugh as she held her glass of red wine. Next year I'm going to donate 10 more. Master Kong was the true Buddha. What's so strange about that? Tang Xiaozi said sincerely. Xiaozi, you are making me nervous. Jiang Tian shook his head helplessly. Now that Jiang Tian has taken over Japan, he can expand his business empire into Japan. But he is not in a hurry. He needs to stabilize the South Korean and Singapore markets first. Otherwise it will be troublesome. Master Kong, I've released a new album. After the banquet, Li Jinju presented a record to Chen Xiaobei. Her face was full of shyness and anticipation. Jiang Tian was speechless. He frowned as he looked at the record. You are the Lord of Temple Tanjun and the chairman of Xing Yuli family. Why do you still want to cultivate? Do you think you have too much time on your hands? Seeing that Jiang Tian was a little unhappy, Li Jinju was so anxious that her beautiful eyes were about to burst into tears. She lowered her head and said with grievance, Master, didn't you say that my talent in cultivation was ordinary and I would never reach the top level, and that my singing was not bad? Did I say that? Jiang Tian scratched his head awkwardly. He suddenly remembered that Li Huiyan told him that Li Jinju had invited many singers and music producers to the banquet. This does not make sense. She is the Lord of Temple Tanjun and the controller of the Li family. Singing, dancing and acting? Are you kidding me? It turned out that she had always taken that sentence to heart. It seemed that when she sang Jiangnan's style, he had praised her. Seeing that Li Jinju was so aggrieved that she was about to cry, Zhao Xueqing's beautiful eyes flickered as she pinched Jiang Tian's waist. Jiang Tian quickly took the record and nodded. Don't worry. I will listen to it. Okay. I like it. Master will like it. Li Jinju smiled through her tears and nodded. She looked like a child who had just received a huge reward. She sighed in her heart. Master, I just want to sing it for you. Otherwise, won't all my efforts be in vain? Ah, you really do compose music, Master Jiang. Zhao Xueqing got into the car and opened the record and put it into the car CD player. Of course. If I want to develop in the music industry, I will definitely be the divine melody maker. Jiang Tian said proudly. But she changed her name. Alas, her Chinese name is Li Aiyan. Which is that? Qinger suddenly smiled playfully. Temple Tanjun belongs to a branch of Wuxia's Taoist school. Pays attention to the unity of man and nature. Of course, this refers to... Jiang Tian was helpless. Li Jinju was really too willful. Master Kong, you are very witty. Looking at Jiang Tian's nervous appearance, Qinger's beautiful eyes suddenly flashed as she chuckled. Naturally, she did not take Li Jinju's admiration for Jiang Tian to heart. After staying in South Korea for 2 days, Jiang Tian went to Hong Kong and accompanied Qinger to see the night view of Victoria Harbor. His injuries were slowly recovering. On this day, Jiang Tian received news that the ship transporting cultivation resources and antiques to Japan was about to arrive at Zhonghai in Wuxia. Jiang Tian sped up and took the cruise ship to Wuxia. When Jiang Tian arrived at the harbor, the people from the Heaven Alliance were already waiting for him. They quickly completed the customs procedures and loaded the goods into a car to be transported to Jinling. Jiang Tian did not plan to keep the cultivation resources in the Fulong Mountain Mansion. He had already found a very secluded place and set up a formation. However, he could only let Qinger know about these treasures. Otherwise, he would attract more attention. Jiang Tian, why are you here? After everything was done, Jiang Tian was about to leave. Suddenly, he heard a surprised voice and a graceful figure ran over. Gu Qingqing. Jiang Tian was slightly surprised to see the girl. Why are you here? The girl was petite and had delicate facial features. She was wearing a white cotton jacket and jeans. She looked like a scholar. Who else could it be other than Gu Qingqing, whom he had met at the foot of Mount Everest? Gu Qingqing did not answer the question. Instead, she grabbed Jiang Tian's hand and smiled excitedly. Jiang Tian, my father has never had a relapse since you treated him. Also, that fierce Wu Yingxiong even came to my house to apologize. You are amazing. She admired Jiang Tian from the bottom of her heart. Wu Yingxiong was a martial arts tycoon in the southwest. He could be compared to Hu Qingtian. Her father and even her uncle usually treated him like a demon. He could take whatever he wanted from the Gu family. However, Jiang Tian had hurt his family, but he still endured the humiliation and came to the Gu family to apologize. This showed how powerful Jiang Tian was. Jiang Tian gently pulled his hand away and coughed. Gu Qingqing, don't be so emotional. It's just a small matter. I'm sorry, Brother Jiang. I couldn't control myself. Gu Qingqing blushed and said awkwardly. In fact, she was born in a scholarly family and had a strict upbringing. Men and women were not allowed to touch each other. However, she could not control her emotions at all. This is my wife, Zhou Xueqing. This is Gu Qingqing from Beijing. Jiang Tian introduced Zhou Xueqing to Gu Qingqing. In fact, Gu Qingqing had already noticed Zhou Xueqing when she had run over. This girl was too beautiful. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was like a fairy. Her temperament was otherworldly. She had never seen such a beautiful girl. However, Zhou Xueqing had been explaining things to Huqing Tian and the others. She did not talk to Jiang Tian, so she did not know that she was Jiang Tian's wife. Now that she took a closer look, she realized that Zhou Xueqing was even more beautiful. She could be considered a beauty, and who knew how many rich young masters pursued her in Beijing University. However, compared to Zhou Xueqing, she immediately felt inferior. What was even more awkward was that she had just pulled Jiang Tian's hand. Her face turned even redder. She quickly bowed and said, Mrs. Jiang. I'm good friends with Jiang Tian's cousin Zhang Yilin. She was afraid that Zhou Xueqing would misunderstand. Zhou Xueqing smiled faintly and said, Yes, I heard that you helped my husband at the foot of Mount Everest. Thank you. Gu Qingqing quickly waved her hands and said, No, that's nothing. Brother Jiang helped me even more. She realized that Zhou Xueqing's words of gratitude came from the bottom of her heart. She was not being polite or pretending. She immediately understood that Jiang Tian and Zhou Xueqing's relationship was too deep. They trusted each other very much. No one could tear them apart. Thinking that, she said, Japan has returned many national treasures. It's been called a golden age by the archaeological and cultural circles. The government has set up a group of experts and scholars to receive them. My father is a member, so he brought me and a few classmates over. Oh, I see. Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat. He said, I was just about to meet your father. He wanted to discuss the map of the ruins of immortality with Gu Baixian. My father has always wanted to meet you, but you're too busy. I've tried to contact you several times, but you didn't have time. Suddenly, Gu Qingqing clapped her hands and said excitedly, I forgot to tell you that your cousin Zhang Yilin is also in the group. But she's in the hotel now. What? Yilin is also there? Then take me to see her. Jiang Tian's heart warmed as he hurriedly said. Jiang Tian did not have a good impression of the Zhang family on his mother's side. However, he was very close to Zhang Yilin and his fourth uncle Jiang Tian. Zhang Yilin's health was not good when she was young. In order to make it easier for Jiang Chongging to treat her, she had spent 5 years in the Jiang family in Jinling. The two of them were like siblings. In her previous life, when the Jiang family was at its most critical point, out of all her uncles and aunts, only her fourth uncle's family had strongly supported the Jiang family. However, her grandfather had forcefully stopped her from doing so, and she had even been severely ostracized in the family. When his brain was damaged, Zhang Yilin went to visit him several times. Later they stopped seeing each other. She even asked someone to give him hundreds of thousands of yuan. This money was nothing to Jiang Tian now, but to Jiang Tian and his wife, who were as poor as a church mouse at that time, it was enough to solve their urgent needs. The point was, how much money could a little girl who was still studying and did not have a job have, even if she was born in a big family? Chapter 459. Okay, I'm done here. Let's go to the hotel together. Gu Qingqing nodded. Jiang Tian, I'll go back to Jinling with my team first. Say hello to your cousin for me. Zhou Xueqing also had a good impression of Zhang Yilin, so she also said this. Okay, then I'll go too. See you back in Jinling. Jiang Tian nodded and called a taxi with Gu Qingqing. Soon they arrived at the hotel. Professor Gu, nice to meet you. Master Kong, why are you here? Qingqing, why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have prepared myself. Jiang Tian first met Gu Baixian in a guest room. The two of them shook hands warmly and exchanged pleasantries. Hee, I wanted to give you a surprise. Gu Qingqing stuck out her tongue mischievously. Master Kong, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here. Gu Baixian was also overjoyed to see Jiang Tian. He completely treated Jiang Tian as his savior. Where's Zhang Yilan? She's my cousin. Jiang Tian didn't waste any time and directly asked about his cousin's whereabouts. Just then a girl in high heels pushed open the door and said, Professor Gu, I need to take the night off. I have some personal matters to attend to somewhere. Before she could finish, she suddenly looked at Jiang Tian and screamed, Cousin, why are you here? Yilan, I heard you were here so I came to see you. Jiang Tian smiled and showed a doting look. Brother, stay here. Don't go anywhere. I'm going out to do something. I'll be back soon. Zhang Yilan looked at Jiang Tian worriedly and hurriedly left. She seems to be very worried about me. Didn't Qingqing tell her that I've recovered and that I'm a martial artist now? Jiang Tian was surprised and couldn't help but look at Gu Qingqing. Gu Qingqing looked apologetic and quickly explained, I told her about you but she didn't believe me at all. It's fine. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. When Zhang Yilan visited him that year he was very crazy. Moreover, many brain experts said that his brain was permanently damaged and there was no possibility of recovery. It was normal for Zhang Yilan to not believe it. He quickly said goodbye to the father and daughter of the Gu family and followed Zhang Yilan. Zhang Yilan left the hotel and got into a Maserati sports car. To Jiang Tian's surprise, the driver was a young man of initial transcendent stage. The car sped all the way to a very secluded private club in the suburbs. Why would Ellen come to such a place? Jiang Tian scanned the area with his divine sense and found that this private club was not a place where decent girls should come to. Inside there was prostitution, gambling and drugs. It was a place for men to seek pleasure. What surprised Jiang Tian even more was that the person who welcomed them at the door was Wang Quan, the man whose limbs he had broken in Singapore. He seemed to be the owner of this clubhouse. Looking at Wang Quan's respectful and flattering face towards the young martial artist, he could guess that the young man's identity was quite extraordinary. However, Jiang Tian did not rush in rashly. At least for now, Zhang Yilan was not in danger. Jiang Tian's divine sense saw that Wang Quan was limping in front and leading the way. Zhang Yilan followed the young man into a luxurious private room. After both parties sat down, Zhang Yilan looked at the young man and said, Zhang Jiwei, why are you looking for me? Zhang Jiwei took out a golden lighter and lit a cigarette. He said faintly, I'm not looking for you. It's Chen Zifan, young Master Chen. Why is he looking for me? Zhang Yilan was shocked. Zhang Jiwei was one of the top 20 families in Yanjing. She heard that he also had a martial arts background. He was an existence that she could not afford to offend. Chen Zifan was even more domineering. He was born in the Qin family, one of the top 7 martial arts families in Yanjing. His background was unfathomable and he also had a deep influence in the political and business circles. His sister Qin Xuejiao was also a member of a mysterious organization. Her influence was much stronger than Song Shuangyan and the other 4 beauties of Yanjing who broke off their engagement with Jiang Tian. It's about your cousin. Zhang Jiwei exhaled a cloud of smoke and said faintly while crossing his legs. I've always been grateful to you for what you did for my cousin. Zhang Yilan said expressionlessly. Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat. Cousin? Could she be talking about me? He stared even more carefully and did not miss a single detail. But why is Chen Zifan looking for my brother? They have no connection at all. Zhang Yilan asked again. Zhang Jiwei did not answer the question directly. Instead he smiled and said, Don't thank me. Give me money and I'll help you. We both get what we need. This is just a deal. However, I know that you're actually in a difficult situation. When the 3 big families of Jinling made a move against the Jiang family, your father secretly used the funds of the Zhang group to support the stock price of the Medicine King group. However, he was stopped by your grandfather and a few uncles. Now your father was punished by the family and stripped of all his shares and positions. He's only a guard now. You're also in need of money. Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. During the financial war, his 4th uncle secretly helped the Jiang family and was punished by the family. It seemed that although his return had caused a butterfly effect and caused many people to deviate from their original life path, some people and some feelings would not change. That's because my grandfather didn't have good taste. Didn't the stock price of the Medicine King group go up? Zhang Yilan sneered. That's right. The fundamentals of the Medicine King Group are good, but they can't do without the support of my financial company. Zhang Jiwei smiled and said, do you know? In order to raise the stock price of the Medicine King Group, I spent at least 10 billion. I even used a lot of connections in Jinling. Without me, not to mention Jiang Tian, even the Jiang family would be finished. Hearing this, Jiang Tian already knew that Zhang Jiwei was not a good person. The financial war of the Medicine King Group had nothing to do with him. Jiang Tian had never even met him. Thank you. I know that the money and benefits I gave you are not enough to repay your kindness. Zhang Yilin smiled stiffly. It's good that you understand. A few 100,000 is not enough for me to spray paint a car. Zhang Jiwei smiled proudly. Zhang Yilin's face stiffened. She smiled and said, thank you. Who asked you to be my cousin Zhang Danfeng's friend? My cousin said that you've always been very loyal and reliable. She was a little annoyed. I helped you steal a Vitality Jade charm from my grandfather. Why didn't you say anything? That was a real magic treasure. It was priceless. Actually, you have a way to repay me. Zhang Jiwei's eyes flashed with greed. He glanced at Zhang Yilin's snow-white neck and plump breasts and said meaningfully, Yilin, you are so beautiful. This is your capital. If you spend a night with me, you will also have to spend a night with young Master Zifen. I guarantee that you will be able to do well in the Zhang family in Yanjin. Zhang Yilin's face suddenly turned cold. She said, Zhang Jiwei, you came here just to talk to me about this? Dream on. She got up and left. Seeing that she was about to leave, Zhang Jiwei didn't stop her. He was calm and had a card up his sleeve. Do you know that even if the Jiang family has trillions of assets, it is nothing more than an ant in the eyes of a martial arts family? His face became more and more gloomy. He said coldly, if you leave now, I will tell you that no one will help Jiang Tian and the Jiang family. He will be torn to pieces by the Qin family in minutes. Zhang Yilin's body suddenly stiffened. She stopped walking and took a deep breath. She said coldly, don't do anything to my cousin. I can agree to any condition except this one. Zhang Yilin, do you think you have anything to exchange with me except your body? Zhang Jiwei picked up the red wine on the table and took a sip. He said calmly, your father is dying and you don't have much money. Let me tell you, it's your blessing that young Master Zifen likes you. Zhang Jiwei, don't forget that you are Zhang Danfeng's friend. Aren't you afraid that he will deal with you if you bully me? Zhang Yilin said angrily. Zhang Danfeng is very strong in the secular world. He can be ranked in the top 20 in the circle of Yanjin's young masters. But compared to a martial arts family, he is nothing. I am willing to sleep with you and he can't thank me enough. Do you think he doesn't know my plan? Zhang Jiwei said with a gloomy smile. Zhang Yilin was shocked and then said calmly, yes, my father is dying, but don't forget that I have a marriage with the Hu family in Yanjin. You should know that your fiancé is actually a good-for-nothing scum. He is not even as good as your cousin. He is definitely not your best choice. Zhang Jiwei looked at her with interest and said with deep emotion, this is also the result of you wanting to protect the Jiang Tian. I really didn't know that you were willing to make such a big sacrifice for that lunatic Jiang Tian. You actually sold yourself. But what does it matter if you sell yourself once or twice? Anyway, you're going to sell yourself. There are guest rooms upstairs. Bah, I won't agree to it even if I die. Also, you are not qualified to insult my cousin. Zhang Yilin turned her head and spat fiercely, then walked towards the door. Clap, clap, clap. Suddenly, the door was pushed open from the outside. Under the escort of Wang Quan and several other young masters and burly men, a tall and dignified figure walked in. He clapped lightly and said with a hideous smile, not bad, not bad. Fiery like fire and full of flavor. I like this kind of girl. Young Master Zifen. Zhang Jiwei saw this and quickly put out his cigarette. He stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Clap. Qin Zifen's smile suddenly disappeared and he gave him a slap. He angrily said, you haven't done anything important yet and you are already thinking about flirting with girls. Do you want to die? Don't you have a grudge against Jiang Tian? Bullying his sister isn't that good. Zhang Jiwei was not angry at all. He said with a shameless smile. What do you know? Qin Zifen's cold face showed a trace of anger. Zhang Jiwei was so scared that he shut his mouth and did not dare to talk nonsense anymore. Qin Zifen came to the sofa and sat down. Next to him, Wang Quan quickly took out a Cuban cigar from the cigar box on the table. He used a silver cigar tongs to cut off one end of the cigar for Chen Zifan. Then he struck an oak match and lit the cigar evenly. With a flattering expression he handed it to Chen Zifan with both hands. Chen Zifan took a puff of the cigar and took out an antique porcelain bottle and put it on the coffee table. He leisurely smiled and said, "Zhang Yilin, I heard that you and Jiang Tian have a good relationship. He should trust you a lot. Think of a way to make him eat this bottle of powder." Chapter 460. What is this? You want to kill him? Zhang Yilin was shocked. How could he be so easy to kill? This thing won't kill him, it will only turn him into a cripple. Chen Zifan said indifferently. At this time, Zhang Yilin understood that she had been deceived. She hatefully looked at Zhang Jiwei and said, "Zhang Jiwei, you took so much money from me and had me do so many things for you, but you actually deceived me, you bastard." Other than his father, his grandfather, 3 uncles and 2 aunts were extremely disgusted and hated his little aunt Zhang Wanqing. They would rather die than interact with her. Her grandfather didn't even allow anyone to mention her name in the family. A few years ago when she visited Jiang Tian twice, her grandfather put her under house arrest for 3 days and didn't give her a sip of water or a mouthful of food. Since then she didn't dare to show her concern for Jiang Tian, her aunts and the Jiang family. She only dared to ask Gu Qingqing to visit them a few times. She didn't even dare to call them. She knew that if her family found out that she was helping Jiang Tian, she might not even be able to enter the Zhang family's door. At that time she would never be able to help her cousin and the Jiang family. In fact, the development of the situation later confirmed her conjecture. Last year the Jiang family was jointly attacked by the 3 great families of Jinling. Her father wanted to help, but was severely punished by her grandfather and even deprived of his inheritance rights. Zhang Jiwei was introduced to her by her cousin Zhang Danfeng. It was said that his father was a martial arts expert in the Yangtze River Delta region and had a good relationship with Yi Wudao. He had some influence in Jinling. Zhang Yilin wanted Zhang Jiwei to help the Jiang family and protect her cousin. He wasn't in good spirits and had provoked the Song family before. She didn't want him to be bullied and schemed against again. She didn't expect Zhang Jiwei to be one of Chen Zifan's people, and Chen Zifan had a grudge against her cousin Jiang Tian. Could it be that even her cousin Zhang Danfeng was one of Chen Zifan's people? He knew both of them, so how could he not know this? Thinking of this, her heart suddenly trembled. "I can't do this." Zhang Yilin didn't have time to think so much. She shook her head and said, "Let me go, I can help you steal a magic tool from the old man. It's called the Kill Immortal Sword." Forget it. The Zhang family was not a martial arts family at all. They were just a political and business family. How could they have any magical weapons? That sword was at most an antique. I'm afraid only the recuperation jade talisman can be considered a magic tool. Chen Zifan said slowly. "I must kill Jiang Tian. If you don't kill him I can find Zhang Danfeng. In fact he had wanted to join me for a long time. If they asked him to kill Jiang Tiana to prove his loyalty he would definitely agree. It's just that the success rate might not be as high as when you do it. You know how powerful I am in Beijing. I can easily wipe out a secular family like yours. If you help me get rid of Jiang Tian, I promise that your father will regain his power, and that you will be able to do well in Beijing. No, even if you kill me I won't harm my cousin." Zhang Yilin shook her head abruptly. Her face was resolute, but she was already trembling in fear. Her eyes were red. "You don't agree? Kill you? It was too simple. Do you know that sometimes people are better off dead than alive? As you can see, I have a lot of brothers here who can satisfy you together." Chen Zifan said with a cold smile. The group of brawny men grinned. Zhang Jiwei rubbed his fists and approached Zhang Yilin. He was almost drooling. "Young Master Zifan, if you don't like her I will go first. Remember to record it. If this girl doesn't do her job properly, post the video on the internet and let the world see how she is being fucked by 7 brawny men." Chen Zifan took a sip of wine and took out his phone. He didn't even bother to look at the video. "Brothers, don't just stand there. Press her down tight." Zhang Jiwei had already taken off his pants and said with a smile. The 7 brawny men rushed forward. Zhang Yilin was the daughter of the Zhang family. She was beautiful and had a good reputation in Beijing. Her skin was fair and her figure was curvy. Wouldn't it be nice to touch her when he was massaging her? Wang Quan laughed. Don't worry everyone. I have a grudge against Jiang Tian. For today's action I have cleared the place. No matter how loud you are, no one will hear you. His eyes were filled with crazy hatred. After returning from Singapore, the Wang family was quickly investigated. How could a family as evil as the Wang family withstand the investigation? They were sentenced and sent to jail. Soon the Wang family scattered. The only legal asset he had left was this clubhouse. Moreover, Jiang Tian had broken all 4 of his limbs, leaving him with a lifelong disability. Could be said that he hated Jiang Tian to the core. His heart was crazily gnawed by hatred. With his strength, he didn't have the courage to challenge Jiang Tian. Fortunately, when he was rescuing his family, he was introduced to Chen Zifan. He immediately saw the hope of revenge. Chen Zifan. He was the disciple of one of the top 7 families in Yanjing. He had an ancient martial arts background and was even related to the legendary mysterious Yin sect. No matter how powerful Jiang Tian was, he would never be able to defeat Chen Zifan and Wuxia. Jiang Tian, you won't live for long. However, seeing your closest cousin being raped and humiliated by others, it's also quite satisfying. Just as he was feeling pleased with himself, a cold and intimidating voice suddenly sounded in the room. Let's see who dares to touch her. A tall and imposing figure appeared out of thin air like a ghost. He didn't even open the door. The first one to react was not Chen Zifan, Zhang Jiwei, or Wang Quan, but Zhang Yilin. Cousin, why are you here? Let's go. Zhang Yilin was stunned for a moment, then she screamed anxiously and ran over to push Jiang Tian out. For a disciple of a martial arts family like Chen Zifan, killing people was no psychological pressure at all. Not to mention that her cousin didn't have the strength to truss a chicken, he was also not in good spirits. This was equivalent to a lamb falling into a wolf's den. How could he possibly survive? Jiang Tian's body was as still as a mountain. He patted her shoulder and said, Yilin, you've worked hard all these years. However, you don't have to worry. With me here, these bastards can't hurt you. I can kill Chen Xuejiao and I can also kill Chen Zifan. Cousin, what did you say? Are you crazy? Seeing that Jiang Tian was unmoved, Zhang Yilin was stunned. She looked at Jiang Tian in astonishment. She was anxious and angry and her tears instantly burst out. In her impression, Jiang Tian had been a good-for-nothing since he was young. He was vain, frivolous, impulsive and ignorant. He couldn't be any worse. Zhang Yilin still remembered her grandfather Zhang Jinghua's evaluation of Jiang Tian. It's fine if he's ignorant and incompetent, but he doesn't know when to advance or retreat. His EQ is extremely low and he's impulsive and irritable. He actually provoked the Song family. He's not a good-for-nothing but a scourge. The reason why Zhang Yilin had been helping Jiang Tian and leaning towards the Jiang family was that during her 5 years of childhood in the Jiang family, Jiang Tian took good care of her. However, in order to help Jiang Tian and the Jiang family, she and even her father's bloodline had suffered too much and paid too painful a price. During those 2 years, Jiang Tian spent a lot of money in Linzhou and owed a lot of debt. There were even loan sharks who threatened to kill Jiang Tian. It was Zhang Yilin who secretly helped to pay off the debt. Zhang Yilin had worked hard to earn the money while studying. She had lived frugally and saved the money. Several cousins of Song Shuangyan were beaten when they went to break off the engagement. After returning to Beijing, they even threatened to get rid of Jiang Tian. Zhang Yilin also tried her best to mediate, begging for mercy for Jiang Tian. She didn't know how many grievances and disdain she received. She was young and her father's bloodline was gradually losing power in the family. Her words didn't carry much weight. She could only curry favor with her cousin Zhang Danfeng to speak for her. She also met Zhang Jiwei. In the end, she had no choice but to marry the good-for-nothing young master of the Hu family. It was just to let the young masters of the Song family have some fear and not deal with Jiang Tian. It could be said that over the years she sacrificed too much for Jiang Tian and suffered too many grievances. Sometimes she felt that fate was unfair. Cousin, why are you so disappointing? I'm so young and I'm a girl. What can I do? Why do I have to protect you? You're muddle-headed all day long, you don't know anything. Thus, when she saw that Jiang Tian had suddenly appeared and refused to leave, all of her previous efforts had gone to waste. Her emotions instantly collapsed. I'm not crazy. I'm fine now. Don't worry. Seeing this, Jiang Tian painfully wiped her tears. Damn, why did this kid appear in Zhonghai? At this time, Zhang Jiwei had already retreated to Chen Zifen's side in a panic. Wang Quan's face changed and even began to tremble as if he saw a demon. If it was someone else who interrupted their good thing, they would definitely make a move. But Zhang Jiwei and Wang Quan more or less knew Jiang Tian's strength. Let them scheme against Jiang Tian behind his back and still have the guts to deal with Jiang Tian face to face. Even if you lend them 10 guts, they wouldn't dare to do it. What's going on? Why do they seem to be afraid of my cousin? At this time, Zhang Yilin suddenly felt a trace of abnormality. Zhang Jiwei actually retreated. Wang Quan also lowered his head with a pale face, as if he was afraid Jiang Tian would recognize him. Even Chen Zifen's face was dignified, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Who are you? Courting death. But the 8 big men didn't seem to recognize Jiang Tian, and then arrogantly approached Jiang Tian. Some of them even pulled out a pistol and pointed it at Jiang Tian. Zhang Yilin's heart that just raised a little sense of security was instantly replaced by nervousness. If you dare to kill him, you'll have to kill me first. You try to shoot, Zhang family will never let you go. She subconsciously stood in front of Jiang Tian, stretched out her arms and shouted with tears in her eyes. He is just a lunatic, just an ordinary person who can't even trust a chicken. He will never be a threat to you, so why do you want to hurt him? Let him go. She was clearly terrified to the point her delicate figure was trembling uncontrollably like a sieve. She was clearly terrified to the point tears were about to burst out from her eyes, and she was clearly terrified to the point her voice was obviously trembling, yet she still firmly protected Jiang Tian behind her like a mother hen protecting her chick. Using her weak body, she propped up a warm and safe space. You're the best cousin in the world, and you should be the person I want to protect for my whole life. I don't want to see your tears anymore. Seeing this, Jiang Tian's heart of stone that had experienced the vicissitudes of thousands of years suddenly emerged a large area of tenderness. His nose was sour, his eyes were hot, and tears almost flowed out. Chapter 461. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Jiang Tian pulled her behind him, and Zhang Yilin couldn't help but retreat behind Jiang Tian. Just as they brushed past each other, a few golden rays of light suddenly pierced through the void. Zhang Yilin heard an ear-piercing and short whistle, and then she saw the 8 burly men fall to the ground in an instant. Looking closely, the blood on the corpses grew bigger and bigger, and finally the bodies were split in half. Even the guns were cut in half. Ouch! Zhang Yilin screamed and then hugged Jiang Tian's waist tightly, her delicate body trembling uncontrollably. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Jiang Tian patted her small hands that were wrapped around his chest, feeling a little sad. In the end, she was just an ordinary little girl. She was obviously scared to death, but she still had to deal with Chen Zifen. She was obviously scared to tears, but she still had to stand in front of him. This was really too difficult for her. And today, if he didn't meet her by chance, she would have been killed by Chen Zifen. It could be said that even if she agreed to help Chen Zifen kill him, she would not be able to escape the fate of being killed. After all, Jiang Tian had a lot of support now, and Chen Zifen was also afraid of Jiang Tian's revenge. Jiang Tian, let me go. I know you're very powerful. I'm willing to help you secretly. If there's any movement in the Qin family, I can report it to you. Also, I have a lot of cultivation resources. Chen Zifen tried his best to remain calm, but when he opened his mouth he found that his voice was still trembling. Previously there were many rumors about Kong Teichu, but Chen Zifen didn't believe them. He was also at the initial stage of the transcendent state, and he thought that if Zhang Yilin cooperated with him he would be able to deal with Jiang Tian. But now he found that he was completely wrong. At this moment he couldn't help but think of the order that his grandfather Chen Qingshan gave at the family meeting a few days ago. We must avenge Xuejiao. But not now. Without my order, no one is to come into contact with or provoke Kong Teichu. His strength is far beyond your imagination. In fact, he was acting on his own this time. He was anxious to kill Jiang Tian and gain merit. After he succeeded, he would become a hero of the family. Chen Zifen, do you think the Qin clan can hurt me? Jiang Tian's expression was calm as he said coolly, even if I stand there and let you all kill, you all can't kill me. Do you think I would care about your trifling trifles? Seeing this, Chen Zifen's face turned even paler. He knelt down on the ground and said in a trembling voice, "Elin, help me say something. Have you forgotten? We have eaten together a few times." Seeing this, the fear in Zhang Yilin's heart instantly disappeared, and a sense of glory actually rose in her heart. Although she claimed to be the little princess of the Zhang family, that was just for show. In fact, her father's bloodline had already lost power. She couldn't say anything about the coldness and grievances she had suffered in the Zhang family. During the gathering in Yanjin, she had followed Zhang Danfeng and met Qin Zifan a few times. But it turned out that Qin Zifan was like a high and mighty prince in front of her. How could he even look at her? To put it bluntly, she didn't even have the right to pour tea for Qin Zifan. But now Qin Zifan, who was like a demon in her heart, was actually kneeling in front of her in such a humble manner, wagging his tail and begging for mercy like an old dog. She was shocked and she suddenly felt a sense of exultation. "Don't beg me. I'll listen to my cousin." After being stunned for 3 seconds, Zhang Yilin let go of Jiang Tian's waist and stood side by side with him. Seeing that begging Zhang Yilin was useless, Qin Zifan immediately kowtowed to Jiang Tian again. He said in a trembling voice, "Grandmaster Jiang, please spare me this time. Everything can be discussed. I'll even be your slave." Zhang Yilin noticed that at this moment, Qin Zifan's entire body was trembling violently. His head was banging on the ground, his forehead was bleeding and his tears were about to flow out. Could be seen that he was really afraid of Jiang Tian, and he was extremely afraid. He might not even be this afraid when he met the family lord of the Qin family. Cousin has really changed. But it's strange. Why is he calling him Master Kong? He's not that old. Zhang Yilin turned to look at Jiang Tian and suddenly noticed the change in Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian's face seemed to have become more handsome. His eyes were clear and there was a sense of arrogance and indifference in his temperament. That kind of arrogance and indifference couldn't be faked. It must have been cultivated by someone with a high status. It felt as if Qin Zifan and the others were just ants that he could kill with a wave of his hand. "You're Zhang Jiwei. Are you the one who pushed up the stock price of the Medicine King Group? Why didn't I know about it?" Jiang Tian looked at Zhang Jiwei and asked coldly. "Master Kong, I lied to Zhang Yilin. But please don't kill me. My father and Jiang's Yi Wudao are good brothers." Zhang Jiwei also quickly fell to his knees in front of Jiang Tian. "You brat, you're really annoying. You lied to my sister and you don't have any ability. How dare you threaten me?" Jiang Tian sneered. Behind him, Qin Zifan's eyes turned cold. With a flip of his right hand, an extremely sharp blade appeared between his fingers. Then with a flash of cold light he slashed toward Zhang Jiwei's carotid artery. Puchi! Zhang Jiwei's neck split open and blood spurted out like a fountain. He first looked at Qin Zifan in disbelief. Then his eyes burst with anger and resentment. His hands tightly grasped the wound on his artery, but blood still spurted out uncontrollably. He was flabbergasted. He seemed to want to say something, but only some meaningless sounds came out from his throat. Then he fell to the ground and died with remaining grievances. Perhaps until the last moment of his life he still couldn't believe that after doing so many things for Qin Zifan, the other party would kill him. Seeing this, Jiang Tian secretly sighed. This brat Qin Zifan was a ruthless character. He cut the Gordian knot. This was a sign of his allegiance. Killing Zhang Jiwei in front of him was equivalent to handing him a handle. Perhaps in his opinion, this was the only way he wouldn't kill him. Seeing the blood gushing out like a fountain, Zhang Yilin felt dizzy and fell backward. However, Jiang Tian was already aware of it. He held her waist and helped her to sit down on the sofa. She was just overly frightened. It wasn't a big problem. So Jiang Tian didn't hurry to wake her up. He didn't want to scare her again. Young Master Zifan. Wang Quan was dumbfounded as he watched Qin Zifan kill Zhang Jiwei without any hesitation. He couldn't believe it. He suddenly felt the threat of death. He suddenly remembered when he visited his grandfather in prison some time ago. His grandfather had reminded him earnestly, "Royalty is the most ruthless royal family. Qin Zifan is ruthless and cruel. It's enough that he came forward to make us give you a lighter sentence and help you keep some of your family's property. Don't get too close to him. Otherwise you'll suffer. He's more dangerous than Jiang Tian." For a moment his heart was in a mess. But he still picked up a gun and pointed it at Qin Zifan. He trembled and said, "Young Master Zifan, please spare my life. I promise I won't say a word. If you don't believe me, I'll go abroad tomorrow. I swear I'll never return to Wuxia. I believe you, Wang Quan. Don't be nervous. Put down the gun. We're good brothers. Why would I kill you? We're working together for Master Kong. Isn't that good? Qin Zifan frowned and then said gently with a smile. This. Wang Quan didn't know whether he should believe Qin Zifan or not. But the muzzle of the gun slowly lowered. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. A small bloody hole appeared on Wang Quan's forehead and he fell to the ground. At the same time, Wang Quan also fired a shot. Qin Zifan's body shook and he sat on the ground. However, the bullet only hit his shoulder. Qin Zifan stood up and picked up the pistol that Wang Quan threw down. He shot at the rest of the young masters who were either shivering in fear or running away in all directions. After a series of gunshots, everyone fell to the ground, not a single one was left alive. Then he threw the gun at Jiang Tian's feet. He covered his wound and said with a smile, Master Kong, one of them lied to Yilin and coveted her beauty. The other one has a grudge against you. To be honest, if he didn't instigate me, I wouldn't be willing to do anything to you, Master Kong. Now that I've killed them for you, you should be able to see my sincerity, right? Jiang Tian looked at him coldly. This Qin Zifan was indeed a ruthless character. These two confidants and a group of companions were killed without hesitation. It was as if he didn't have any psychological burden. He was indeed a ruthless person. It seemed that these young masters in Yanjin were not as useless as the rumors said. In terms of ability, vision, and even temperament, they were far superior to those young masters in Baichofei. However, Jiang Tian noticed that Qin Zifan actually had the power of the initial transcendent state. He could cultivate qi into righteousness and block a bullet. Why did he deliberately disperse the righteousness at that moment? He had purposely injured himself and even suppressed his cultivation to confuse him so that he would lower his guard. Most likely he would make his next move. In a flash, Jiang Tian made up his mind. He would get rid of Qin Zifan sooner or later, but it was better to use him first. Qin Zifan grimaced and walked to the side of the tea table. He opened a small black bag and picked up a jade talisman with his left hand and said, Master Kong, this is the Vitality Jade Talisman. I asked Zhang Yilin to steal it from the Zhang family. It is said that it is good for cultivating soul energy. Now I give it to you, do you need it? Jiang Tian noticed that Qin Zifan's left shoulder was injured. If he only wanted to take the Vitality Jade Talisman, he would definitely use his uninjured right hand, but he used his left hand. So he must be holding something more important in his right hand. Jiang Tian immediately scanned the area with his divine sense. Qin Zifan's face was full of pity and flattery. He reached out his left arm and handed the Vitality Jade Talisman to Jiang Tian with his left hand. Then he threw out another Jade Talisman with his right hand and shouted, Armor-piercing sword talisman, come. Chapter 462. He threw out the armor-piercing sword talisman and formed a hand seal with both hands. He chanted the incantation and completed it in 1 second. Could be said that he had done it in one go like moving clouds and flowing water. Besides, he had spent a lot of effort searching for the armor-breaking talisman. It was said that it was made by an ancient sword immortal from Mount Shu and could kill an immortal state warrior. He had tested it with another talisman and found that the sword qi could penetrate a 10-centimeter steel plate and break through 4 righteousness qi. He was less than 3 meters away from Jiang Tian and the sword qi was aimed at Jiang Tian's chest. He didn't believe that Jiang Tian could survive the attack. Even if Jiang Tian was half an immortal state warrior, he wouldn't be able to escape. At the thought of killing the legendary Grandmaster Jiang, Qin Zifan's face couldn't help but burst into an ecstatic smile. He seemed to have heard his grandpa's praise for him. He seemed to have seen himself drinking with him in White Emperor City. He seemed to have seen himself becoming the family lord of the Qin family and being worshipped by many rich and powerful people in Yanjin. However, before his smile could fully blossom, it was as if plaster had been stuck on his face. With a rustle, it collapsed and he could no longer smile. Is this also a recuperation talisman? He saw Jiang Tian looking at him with a mocking expression, holding a sharp 3-inch qi sword between 2 fingers of his right hand. You can control the sword qi? Don't kill me. Qin Zifan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His head buzzed and he almost fell to the ground. The chi blade formed by the armor-breaking talisman was as fast as a bullet and much more powerful than the armor-breaking talisman. However, Zhang Tian held it tightly in his hand. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Seeing Qin Zifen's terrified face, Zhang Tian cracked a smile and threw the chi blade to the ground. The armor-piercing chi sword sunk deep into the marble floor and then shattered in the blink of an eye. Qin Zifen's heart skipped a beat and his legs turned to jelly. The recuperation talisman also fell to the ground and broke into pieces. This meant that the sword chi of the armor-breaking sword had not disappeared. Zhang Tian had used his fleshly body to withstand the armor-piercing energy sword. How strong must his fleshly body be and how fast must his speed be? Qin Zifen, don't worry. I won't kill you, Zhang Tian said with a faint smile. Master Kong, I know I was wrong. Hearing this, Qin Zifen felt relieved, but he couldn't hold on any longer and knelt on the ground. Pa pa pa. Zhang Tian casually threw out a few fireball talismans, and all the corpses immediately turned into ashes. Even the bloodstains disappeared. Is this what it means to speak the words of the law, to speak the truth? No, he didn't even open his mouth. Seeing this, Qin Zifen was even more scared. He could not help but urinate. This was a spell and he had successfully controlled the 5 elements. Zhang Tian was indeed a cultivator of both magic and martial arts. He was indeed at the legendary divine realm. In fact, Zhang Tian did not need to waste his magic power to kill people with spells. He used talismans, but the talismans were cast so quickly that Qin Zifen did not notice it. But no matter what, Qin Zifen was really scared of Zhang Tian. He finally understood why his grandfather did not let anyone provoke Zhang Tian. He was an existence that the Qin family could not afford to provoke. It was too scary. Do you know why I didn't kill you? Zhang Tian said with a faint smile. I don't know. Qin Zifen shook his head blankly. Your dog life is still of some use. You will be responsible for protecting Yilin and my 4th uncle. If anything happens to them, I will take your life no matter who it is. Zhang Tian said calmly. The reason why Zhang Tian did not kill the Qin family was that the Qin family should already know of his strength. The Qin family had close ties with Japan. At least the head of the Qin family should know that he had dominated Japan, let alone Qin Zifen. It could be said that unless the Qin family was retarded, they would not dare to make a move on him. Also, Japan was under his control. The Qin family's interests were in Japan. How would they dare to make a move? It had been a week since the battle in Japan ended, but the Qin family did not make a move. They did not even dare to use their political and business power to suppress the Qin family and Medicine King group. This proved the attitude of the Qin family's higher-ups. In this kind of situation, there was no need for Zhang Tian to kill Qin Zifen. Killing him would instead force them to do something desperate. After all, even a rabbit would bite when cornered. Moreover, the Qin family was one of the top 7 families in Wuxia. Thank you, Master Kong. Don't worry, I will do it. Qin Zifen said gratefully. Also, I will inform you immediately if the Qin family makes any moves. The Qin family. Zhang Tian shook his head and smiled disdainfully. Since when was the Qin family worthy of my attention? If I want to destroy the Qin family, I can do it with a swing of my sword. You'd better not provoke me. Remember, bring these words to your patriarch. Yes, Master Kong. Qin Zifen quickly prostrated himself on the ground and kowtowed. I hope you don't cause any trouble. Believe me, even if we are hundreds of miles apart, I can easily take your life. Zhang Tian directly cast a heart bursting with joy curse on him, and then slightly activated it. Bang! Qin Zifen's heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. He felt like it was going to explode. The pressure almost made him pass out. Master Kong, I believe you. I believe you. Don't kill me. Qin Zifen fell to the ground, his body twitching and struggling. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He begged for mercy. Good that you know what I can do. Zhang Tian dispelled the spell, picked up Zhang Yilin and jumped out of the window. His body curved a few times and disappeared from the private club. Zhang Tian hailed a taxi and carried Zhang Yilin in his arms. He injected a stream of true core strength into her body. After a while, the little girl woke up. Brother, you have to leave now. That was the first thing Zhang Yilin said when she woke up. However, after looking at the taxi driver, she quickly swallowed the rest of her words. She grabbed Jiang Tian's hand tightly and said anxiously, Qin Zifan and the others will not let you go. Don't be afraid, Yilin. Qin Zifan can't hurt me at all. Jiang Tian patted her head and comforted her gently. Brother, are you really cured? Zhang Yilin's heart suddenly felt warm when Jiang Tian patted her head. He felt like she was being cared for and loved. She had never felt this kind of warmth from her cousins. It had been a long time since she last felt this kind of warmth. Especially after her father's power was reduced by the family, his relationship with her mother had deteriorated. They quarreled all day long and her father drowned his sorrows in alcohol every day. He rarely cared about her. At this moment she suddenly felt that she had someone to rely on. Her nose twitched and tears almost rolled down her cheeks. She was afraid that Jiang Tian would see her crying, so she turned her head and looked out of the car window. The street lights flashed and the wind blew through the car window, causing her hair to flutter. The tears in the corner of her eyes reflected the light of the night, making her look very sad and beautiful. The two of them were silent for a long time. Zhang Yilin wiped her tears and turned her head. She asked tentatively, Brother, have you become that kind of person? The Zhang family was only a secular family. Even if it was not the top family in the secular world, it still had a certain amount of influence. Moreover, it was located in Yanjing, a place with hidden talents. Zhang Yilin had heard about the martial arts world. When she saw Jiang Tian killing people with his bare hands and how Qin Zifan was so afraid of Jiang Tian, she immediately thought of the legendary martial artist. No. Jiang Tian shook his head indifferently. Zhang Yilin's heart instantly fell into the abyss. She almost cried out, Then why don't you run away? Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian smirked and said, I'm much stronger than those people you know, huh? You're so annoying. Zhang Yilin pinched Jiang Tian's waist and pulled hard. When they were young, Zhang Yilin liked to pinch Jiang Tian's waist. Although they hadn't seen each other for a few years and they had all grown up, she still did it naturally. However, Zhang Yilin was finally relieved. For a moment she was amazed. What had her cousin gone through in the past few years? He had become so powerful that even Qin Zifan was afraid of him. It was amazing. Jiang Tian chuckled. Then a trace of seriousness appeared on his face. He asked, Is your family not doing well now? A trace of sadness flashed in Zhang Yilin's clear eyes. Then she squeezed out a smile and said, It's okay. Don't worry. Everything is fine. Yilin, you can't hide it from me. I know that your family is not doing well now, but don't worry. With your brother here, everything will be fine. Jiang Tian smiled and said, You should know that the Jiang family's Medicine King group was built by me. Jiang Tian spoke tirelessly. The taxi driver kept glancing at Jiang Tian through the rearview mirror. The driver had a lot of customers in Zhonghai every day. He had heard a lot of bragging from all over the world. In the past few years, everyone liked to brag. On the subway, someone picked up the phone and talked about painting the moon inside and outside, putting tiles on the two sides of the Great Wall, throwing light on the atomic bomb, repainting it, and so on. He had heard of the Medicine King Group. He even bought the shares of the Medicine King Group and planned to hold it for a long time. He heard that the major chain pharmacies and pharmaceutical companies were fighting over the distribution rights of their products. None of the patients who had used their products said anything bad. However, he didn't understand the financial war that this person in front of him was talking about. But he couldn't say that he was the behind-the-scenes controller of the Medicine King Group. And that Professor Huang Zhihui, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, seemed to be his disciple. How was that possible? The market value of the Medicine King Group was over 100 billion. This gigolo was just bragging because he saw that the girl was pretty. If he was the young master of the Medicine King Group, he wouldn't have taken a taxi. He would have sent a car to pick him up. He heard that the chairman of the Medicine King Group, Zhang Wanqing, had bought a private plane. Therefore he immediately glanced at Jiang Tian. Sure enough, he didn't have any hair on his mouth. He didn't even drink much. Why was he bragging? The taxi driver was also willing to listen to the fun and didn't interrupt. Jiang Tian didn't mind that he listened. On the one hand, ordinary people wouldn't believe him at all. He was just a researcher in the Medicine King Group and never appeared in public. Besides, he wasn't afraid that the taxi driver would spread the news. This was all normal business and not his trump card. Chapter 463. However, Zhang Yilin was stunned when she heard this. Sometimes she even wondered if Jiang Tian was still crazy. Jiang Tian had been sent to Linzhou by Grandpa Chonggung because he had offended the Song family in Beijing. How could he know about financial warfare and drug development? He was an ignorant and incompetent playboy. However, when she thought about how her cousin knew ancient martial arts, it was reasonable for him to know these things. When Jiang Tian finished, she nodded and looked at Jiang Tian in amazement. "That's amazing." The chauffeur, who was still smiling at the front, immediately froze. His heart immediately sank as he looked at Zhang Yilin through the rearview mirror. This little girl looks quite smart, but her IQ is a little lacking. She believed his words just like that. Jiang Tian smiled. "Give me your account number. I'll transfer some money to you. I don't lack money. I have trillions in my account. Is 10 billion enough?" Pfft. At a red light, the chauffeur, who was drinking water, spat it out when he heard that. Then he pretended to suck on the water and continued to look at this pair of clowns through the rearview mirror. "The market value of the Medicine King Group is only a little more than 100 billion. Where did you get so much money?" Zhang Yilin rolled her eyes. The chauffeur nodded vigorously. The little girl finally understood. Go fuck him. He was very clear about the shareholding structure of the Medicine King Group. He held the shares of the Medicine King Group. Although he was an individual investor, he still had to study the financial reports frequently. The Jiang family only controlled 30% of the shares, which was only about 40 billion. Even if you were the young master of the Medicine King Group, you shouldn't be so generous. Besides, the liquid funds were probably less than 10 billion. Forget it. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Jiang Tian scanned the bank account number in her wallet with his divine sense. Then he called Yi Ziwei. He had a card with tens of billions in it. It was deposited in a domestic bank and Yi Ziwei usually took care of it. After a while, Zhang Yilin's phone suddenly rang. The mobile bank notification sounded. XX mobile bank notification. 10 billion has been transferred to your account. Zhang Yilin took out her phone and looked at it. Her eyes were blinded by a long string of 1s and a long string of zeros. She felt her head buzzing and almost fainted. "Brother, even Zhang Danfeng can't compare to you in terms of wealth," she murmured as if she was talking in a dream. The Zhang family was also a big family in Beijing that spanned across the political and business worlds. The old man used to be the deputy member of the Central Advisory Committee and provided strategic advice to the chief. He could be considered a minister close to the emperor. Although he had retired now, his prestige still remained. His eldest uncle had inherited his grandfather's legacy and was one of the 4 leaders in Beijing. His second uncle, third uncle, and father had all gone into business. After decades of hard work from 3 generations, they had established the Zhang Group. However, the Zhang Group's market value was only 50 billion yuan. Even when his father was at his peak, the market value of his shares was only a few hundred million yuan. His eldest cousin, Zhang Danfeng, was the most promising among the 3rd generation and was considered the leader of the younger generation of the Zhang family. In the past 5 years, he had used his family's influence and gathered all the connections and power of the Zhang family to create a Yanjing software entrepreneurship park. He had even successfully launched it into the market with a market value of 10 billion yuan. His character, ability, and influence were all praised by the older generation of Yanjing. He had a lot of influence in Beijing. However, his personal net worth was only 300 million yuan. Sounded like a lot, but compared to Jiang Tian, he was like a beggar. Zhang Danfeng? He's nothing. Jiang Tian shook his head as a glint of disdain flashed in his eyes. In his previous life, no matter when he met his cousin Zhang Danfeng, he was full of arrogance, as if he was a noble descendant of heaven. Even when the Jiang family was destroyed, the Zhang family only sent Zhang Danfeng to attend his mother's funeral. At that time, Jiang Tian was surrounded by many high-ranking officials and tycoons in Jinlin City. These people were people that Jiang Tian could look up to. But now Jiang Tian had to bow his head to people like the Prime Minister of Singapore, the President of South Korea Mitsui Takori, and Li Jianxi of Star Moon Group. How could he care less about Zhang Danfeng? "Brother, you're the best. You're the best." Zhang Yilin smiled and hugged Jiang Tian. He kissed him on the cheek. Oh my, they kissed just like that. But that's 10 billion yuan. The driver was dumbfounded by the scene. He knew that it took a lot of money to pick up girls. Jiang Tian also wiped off the saliva on his face and said with a disgusted expression, "Look at you, you got saliva all over my face." This caused the little girl to punch him again. However, you still have to be wary of Zhang Danfeng. You and your father should know about this money, Jiang Tian said after messing around with her for a while. Suddenly he exclaimed, "Uncle, the car passed by. I told you that it's Zhou Xian Hotel." I'm sorry. The driver finally reacted and immediately turned the car around. Earlier he was already dumbfounded by the 10 billion. After taking a closer look at Jiang Tian, he suddenly recognized that he seemed to be the great divine Dr. Jiang who defeated the TKM. He might even be the young master of the Medicine King. He was so distracted that he unconsciously drove past the Zhou Xian Hotel. It was already a kilometer away. When they finally arrived at the hotel's car park, the car stopped. When Jiang Tian took out the money, the driver raised his thumb and praised, "Little girl, your boyfriend is awesome. You have to hurry up." Zhang Yilin blushed and waved her hand. "Uncle, what are you talking about? He's not my boyfriend. He's married." "It's not bad to be a mistress." The driver beat his chest and stamped his feet. He thought to himself, why can't you understand? It seemed that this driver uncle was also an open-minded person. "This is my cousin." Zhang Yilin's face was so red that blood could drip out. She was extremely embarrassed. She suddenly remembered that she was adopted by her parents and had no blood relationship with Jiang Tian. But this thought only flashed through her mind. Jiang Tian threw down 100 yuan. "Keep the change." He took her hand and walked into the hotel lobby. "Look how generous. He's indeed the young master of the Medicine King group." The driver took the money and sighed. Then he looked at the meter and almost exploded. "How can you be like this? The meter says 230 yuan. Did you not see it clearly, or did you do it on purpose? The more money you have, the more stingy you are, right?" But after a while he drove the car away with satisfaction. It was no big deal to lose money. Divine Dr. Jiang had sat in his car before. It was enough for him to brag about for half a year. Being a driver was a very promising job. Earning money was secondary. Bragging to passengers was the most important. Back at the hotel, Jiang Tian looked at the time. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Although he had already reached the stage of fasting and didn't need to eat at all, he was worried that Zhang Yilin would be hungry, so he went to the restaurant to eat something. "Brother, actually I don't need so much money. It's fine as long as you can be safe." Zhang Yilin's mood gradually stabilized. She ate the steak in big mouthfuls and looked at Jiang Tian affectionately. "Don't worry. Not only will I live well, but I will also let you and fourth uncle live a good life." Jiang Tian looked at her greedily eating the steak and felt a little sad. She probably hadn't eaten good food for a long time. Looking at her clothes, they were all under 100 yuan. Jiang Tian said, "This money is definitely not for you to spend. You can give it to fourth uncle. Isn't he working in the physics laboratory of the Chinese Academy of Sciences? He seems to be researching super batteries and military mechanical exoskeletons, right?" "Yes." After he returned to the Zhang family, he also worked in the military-industrial group. He was involved in the development of military and civilian products. Zhang Yilin's eyes flashed with sadness. She said, "Originally, the Zhang family wanted to invest in a laboratory. But because he wanted to help the Jiang family in the financial war 2 years ago, the laboratory was stopped by the Zhang family. The military-industrial group also stopped investing. He was also stripped of all his positions in the family. Well, this money is just enough to fulfill his dream. Don't worry, I will visit fourth uncle when I have time," Jiang Tian said with a smile. At this time, Jiang Tian's phone rang. It was Gu Baixian, asking if he had found Zhang Yilin. Jiang Tian told him that he had found her and that he would go up immediately. After a while, Zhang Yilin finished eating. Jiang Tian went to the room where Professor Gu Baixian was. After exchanging some pleasantries, the two of them sat down. Gu Qingqing helped to make some tea, then she whispered to Zhang Yilin. Jiang Tian said politely, "Professor Gu, you are an expert in ancient Chinese. I have told you that I have a few incomplete maps of the ruins of immortality. I have brought them with me this time." Gu Baixian hurriedly said, "Grandmaster Jiang, you're too polite. You've saved my life." Jiang Tian had already taken the incomplete maps out of his storage ring and put them in a file bag. He handed it to Gu Baixian. "These 3 incomplete maps can be pieced together. It should be a quarter of the whole map." Gu Baixian hurriedly put on his reading glasses and gloves. He took out a magnifying glass with a brass handle from his bag and carefully took out a few incomplete maps of the ruins of immortality, pieced them together and placed them on the desk to observe carefully. Sometimes he looked from afar, sometimes his face was close to the map, sometimes he muttered to himself, sometimes he frowned and thought hard. The more he looked, the more serious his face became. Finally he said, "Master Kong, these words should belong to the bird-shaped script, an ancient script that appeared in the pre-Qin period. I can roughly recognize a few of them, North, Ju, Fei, and Hua. But I am really sorry. My academic foundation is still limited. I can't recognize the others at the moment. I still need more time." There were dozens of words on the map and he could only recognize less than 4 of them, and they were intermittent. Jiang Tian's reference was not very useful. However, Jiang Tian was not in a hurry. After all, the incomplete maps had not been collected yet. Gu Baixian could recognize a few words, which meant that he could at least recognize all of them. So he smiled faintly and said, "Then you can keep a copy and study it slowly." Chapter 464. Don't worry, Master Kong. I will figure it out. I will inform you as soon as I have any news. Gu Baixian said emotionally. The incomplete map of the ruins of immortality was too valuable. It was related to the secret realm of the ruins of immortality. He had heard that many martial arts families were looking for it. Jiang Tian had given him a copy, which showed his trust in Qin Fan. Gu Baixian's room was fully equipped with all kinds of office equipment. After Gu Baixian gave him a copy, Jiang Tian put away the incomplete map of the ruins of immortality. After Jiang Tian left, Qin Zifan walked out of the clubhouse in a daze. He immediately called his grandfather, but Uncle Zhong, the old man beside his grandfather Qin Qingshan, said that his grandfather didn't have time to talk to him. He asked him to rush back to Beijing overnight to hold a family meeting. Just when he wanted to ask what was going on, Uncle Zhong said that he had a lot of things to do and hung up the phone. Qin Zifan was suspicious. He called his partner and asked him to send him to the airport. He then took a helicopter back to Yanjin to meet the family head. It was already past midnight when he arrived in Yanjin. However, the meeting hall of the Qin family was still brightly lit and many senior members of the Qin family were present. Qin Zifan didn't dare to say anything. He only greeted Uncle Zhong and sat down quietly. Smoke lingered in the large conference hall. Everyone's ashtray was filled with cigarette butts, and there was a gloomy atmosphere in the room. Is it true that Kong Teichu defeated the 28th Mixed Brigade of the Japan Self-Defense Forces? Qin Qingshan, who was seated at the head of the table, said with a solemn expression. The Mitsui family and a few other tycoons have already stopped working with us. They said that if we don't repair our relationship with Kong Teichu, we won't be able to work with them in the future. However, these tycoons aren't willing to disclose any information. Qin Zifan's second uncle said with a dark face. Hearing this, everyone at the scene frowned. Their faces turned ugly. Most of the Qin family's family businesses were import and export agents for Japanese companies, raw material suppliers and OEM companies. These businesses accounted for 80% of the family businesses. If the cooperation was terminated, the family businesses would only exist in name. Fourth uncle, who was serving in the military, said with a solemn expression, "But I heard from the long formation that Japan has indeed sent out 28 mixed brigades. Kong Teichu is still alive, but I don't know the other details. Didn't you contact Zhou Xian and Yi Zhantian? Zhou Xian is in charge of the martial artists' special forces. The two of them should know about this." Qin Qingshan asked. "I did, but the other party refused to give me any information on the grounds that it was confidential." Fourth uncle said with a bitter smile. Humph. Qin Qingshan snorted coldly. He looked displeased, but he did not say anything else. Kong Teichu is still alive? Could he have surrendered to the Japanese military? Is he being detained by the Japanese self-defense forces? This time it was Qin Zijing, Qin Shuejiao's father, who spoke. "Can we persuade the Japanese cabinet to execute Kong Teichu? We have to avenge Shuejiao's death." Idiot. Qin Qingshan's eyes flashed and then he cursed. If Kong Teichu is being controlled by the Japanese, then why would the Mitsui group want us to mend our relationship with Kong Teichu? Is there a need for that? Then Qin Zifan mustered up his courage and said, Grandpa Kong Teichu is still alive. I just saw him in Zhonghai. He's still alive. And he has already returned to Wuxia. When everyone heard this, their hearts skipped a beat as if they had fallen into an abyss. If Kong Teichu was able to escape unscathed after the Japanese self-defense forces had sent out 28 mixed brigades, then his strength was truly terrifying. It was not impossible for him to kill a few members of the Qin family, or even destroy the entire Qin family if he wanted to. To the Qin family, Qin Xuejiao was killed, but they did not even have the courage to avenge her death. Even Qin Qingshan's expression changed drastically. He was so gloomy that water could be wrung from his face. Frowning, he asked, "What's going on? Why did you run into him?" "Please punish me, Grandpa. I just wanted to avenge Xuejiao's death and bring glory to the family." Qin Zifen knelt on the ground. Although Qin Zifen knew that it was a serious offense to act on his own without the permission of the family, he had to tell his grandpa everything. "You said that even the armor-piercing sword talisman couldn't kill him?" He even clamped it in his hand. "Was it a sword talisman or a chi blade?" Fourth uncle frowned and asked. He was in charge of the family's intelligence network and he had to know every detail. He had been wrong about Jiang Tian's information. Back then he estimated that Jiang Tian was only half a step away from the immortal state, but Jiang Tian had already reached the immortal state when he killed the origin of Sword God's palace. "Fourth uncle, I am not lying. He managed to activate the sword talisman and clamp down on the chi blade. I was only 3 meters away from him when he activated the sword talisman. It took him less than a second to activate the sword talisman. He even used his bare hands to destroy the evidence. Not even a drop of blood or a strand of hair was left behind. Even though a few hours had passed, even though he had returned home and returned to his base, Qin Zifen still had lingering fears and couldn't help but tremble when he recalled the scene. Everyone present couldn't help but cry out in alarm, and their faces suddenly became as pale as paper. Uncle Zhong, who was at the peak of transcendent state, took a deep breath and said, "That was a jade essence sword talisman from Mount Shu. Could even kill an immortal state warrior at such a close distance." But he shook his head slowly. Qin Qingshan glanced at Qin Zifen and wanted to ask him what he had found out about Singapore. However, he was afraid that he would not be able to find out anything since the order had just been issued. Fourth uncle was on tenterhooks. Although father didn't say anything, the disappointment in his eyes was obvious. He had indeed neglected his duty. Back then he had said that the dragon-snaring lasso and heart-burning 5-poison tea should be able to restrain Jiang Taichu. In the end, Jiang Taichu had broken free as soon as he arrived on the Great East Asia, causing Qin Xuejiao to be killed. He made up his mind to dig out the details of the battle between the 28th Mixed Regiment and Jiang Tian. He had to fully evaluate his combat strength and not make any mistakes. Qin Qingshan turned around and looked at Qin Zifen, who was still kneeling on the ground. "Zifen, he let you go just like that? As far as I know, this brat is completely unbridled and fearless. He had killed Xuejiao. Although Qin Zongheng claimed that it was an accident, someone from the Condor unit told me the truth. Xuejiao was strangled to death by Kong Teichu." He said. Qin Zifen looked at Qin Qingshan in panic. He gritted his teeth and said, "He said that destroying the Qin family is just a matter of him. He told the Qin family not to mess with him. Otherwise he will make the Qin family disappear from the world." Bang! Qin Qingshan heavily slammed the table, causing the teacups and ashtrays on the table to jump up. A majestic anger enveloped his face, and his slightly widened eyes were filled with a piercingly cold expression. "Arrogant! How arrogant! Destroy the Qin family? How arrogant! The Qin family is one of the 7 major families in Yanjin. We control the foreign trade department and are a family of martial arts arbitrators. Kong Teichu is nothing. I suggest that we stop the overseas business of the Medicine King Group. Aren't they going to expand overseas?" Before Qin Qingshan could say anything, the group of Qin clan disciples exploded. Eldest Uncle Qin Zijing in particular flew into a rage. Only Uncle Zhong remained silent. He shook his head at Qin Qingshan with a solemn expression. How could the Qin family be a match for someone who could take on an army head-on? No one had expected that Qin Qingshan would actually calm down at this moment. He took a sip of tea, pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Jiang Taichu defeated Japan this time and everyone in the martial arts world admires him. He has received too much support. I think it's better to wait for the results of a comprehensive investigation before making a decision. Fourth uncle said, yes, that's what I think too. Kong Teichu is nothing to be afraid of, but he has formed the Heavenly Alliance and has Yi Zhantian's support. We need to consider this carefully. I will report to my father as soon as the investigation results are out. We will have a family meeting then. Meeting adjourned. When Qin Qingshan said these two words, he felt depressed. He was so angry that his hands were trembling. Only he knew that even though the Qin family was one of the 7 major families in Yanjin, they could not do anything to Kong Teichu. Moreover, not only could he not do anything to Jiang Tian, he might even have to submit to Jiang Tian. Otherwise, many of the Qin family's businesses with close ties to Japan would go bankrupt. Thinking of this, he could not help but glare at fourth uncle angrily. He had misjudged Kong Teichu's strength and insisted on cooperating with Japan to capture Kong Teichu. Now he had shot himself in the foot. The task of Gu Baixian's team was to identify, register, value, and repackage all the antiques returned by Japan before shipping them to the Palace Museum. Although there were dozens of experts working together and graduate students like Zhang Yilin and Gu Qingqing helping, it still took at least a week. In the next few days, Jiang Tian accompanied Zhang Yilin to go shopping and sightseeing in Zhonghai while she was at work. He always felt that he owed this little girl too much. Seeing her happy smile, Jiang Tian felt that he had made it up to her. However, Jiang Tian was not idle either. He had cultivated for thousands of years and had developed the habit of working hard at all times. He booked a presidential suite and hid in it while Zhang Yilin was busy. He did not leave the room and buried himself in alchemy, artifact forging and cultivation. After the 5 elements alchemy furnace was refined and modified, its power was completely released. He was already proficient in the art of alchemy, and with the 5 elements alchemy furnace, it was as if he had the help of God. He could more flexibly and accurately control the 5 elements. The probability of extracting, removing impurities, fusing, condensing, forming, and collecting the pills had skyrocketed, almost reaching 100%. He used the stalactite grass and dozens of other precious spirit herbs and spirit medicines he got from the Japanese Cherry Blossom Festival to make dozens of meridian-nourishing pills to repair his damaged dantian and meridians. Then he used the winchim grass, life tree sap and many other spirit herbs and spirit medicines to make spirit-cultivating pills and spirit-nourishing pills. Because in the battle with Miyamoto Genichi, his true essence was constantly condensed and showed signs of breaking through to the 6th level of qi refining stage. Jiang Tian wanted to strike while the iron was hot and directly used the pills to push his cultivation to the 6th level of qi refining stage. Who asked me to be called a drug addict in the cultivation world? I can't stop taking pills. Jiang Tian mocked himself. Chapter 465. Jiang Tian didn't expect the stalk of Stellaris herb from the Japanese Cherry Blossom Festival to be so powerful. He only took 3 pills and 2 days to recover completely. After taking a few essence cultivation pills and essence augmenting pills, Jiang Tian reached the 6th level of qi refinement stage with ease, crossing a huge gap and entering the late stage of qi refinement stage. I broke through so easily. Maybe it's because he met Zhang Yilin, that little girl. Jiang Tian was speechless and couldn't believe it. It was so smooth that it felt like a game. However, he also understood that the true essence he had refined during the battle with Miyamoto Genichi was the foundation for this rapid breakthrough. The 6th level of qi refinement stage. Not only is my true essence storage 10 times more than before, but my sea of qi is also more condensed and even shows signs of evolving into an elixir field. My gung metal divine body has also been strengthened and is showing signs of reaching phenomenal success. Jiang Tian looked inside with his divine sense and couldn't help but smile. The strengthening of my true essence and physique has further strengthened my divine sense. Now the mud pill palace between my eyebrows has been completely opened and is showing signs of evolving into an immortal sense C. I can use all kinds of divine powers and secret arts at my fingertips. Great. Jiang Tian's confidence doubled as he carefully observed the changes in all aspects. The 6th level of qi refinement stage and the strengthening of my gung metal divine body. If Miyamoto Genichi is in front of me now, I can kill him in 3 moves. Why would I need to fight for 2 hours? Not to mention Miyamoto Geniki, I can even kill an immortal state peak stage cultivator in 10 moves. Now there are not many people in this world who can threaten me. Maybe I should set foot in Yanjin and ask the Song family for the incomplete map of the ruins of immortality. Jiang Tian glanced to the north toward Yanjin where the Song family was located. Boom. He suddenly stood up and took a step toward the north. A faint murderous intent appeared on his face. The Song family is one of the top 3 families in the secular world. In terms of status and influence, it is second only to the Bai family and the other martial arts ruling families in Yanjing. In my previous life, you swindled away the incomplete map of the ruins of immortality and broke off the engagement, bringing endless humiliation to the Jiang family. And now are you ready to fight me? Song Shuangyan, in your previous life, you regarded me as an ant. You bullied me, humiliated me, slandered me, laughed at me, despised me, hated me, cheated me and made me the laughingstock of the world. In this life I have returned like this. I wonder how you will face me. Jinling, Mount Fulong. On this day the sky had just begun to brighten. Huang Linger woke up earlier than others every day. She meditated for a while and took care of the flowers and plants. But today she found that Yi Ziwei woke up earlier than her. Sister Ziwei, don't you have to work today? Huang Linger walked to Yi Ziwei's side and asked curiously. Medicine King Group's products have been fully launched in South Korea, and they are already pushing to the Japanese market. I'm quite happy, so I'm giving myself a short holiday. Yi Ziwei looked at her and a trace of pity flashed across her eyes. She said gently, you take care of the flowers and plants every day and you don't even go out to play. Don't you find it annoying? You should like to go out to play at your age. Huang Linger was wearing a black trench coat with croissant buttons. Her hair was tied up in a bun. After a period of cultivation, her complexion had become clearer, and she exuded the aura of an immortal. She shook her head lightly and smiled contentedly. No, I don't. I feel very comfortable watching these herbs grow every day. Oh? Yi Ziwei nodded. She thought to herself that it was because these herbs were all important to Jiang Tian. This girl. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, a sinister voice rang out. This girl is a cauldron. Look, her body is brimming with a strong Yi-wood aura. Who are you? Get out. Yi Ziwei was shocked. She saw several figures appear in the courtyard like ghosts. These people were either wearing hideous masks or had black chi swirling around their faces. They exuded a murderous and evil aura. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. Who cares who they are? How dare they barge into the Jiang family? They deserve to die. Xin Mange shot out from one of the villas with lightning speed. She slashed out with her sword and directly attacked. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The figures retreated without a fight. They turned around and ran as fast as lightning. Xin Mange chased after them. Uncle Ege, look after the house. I'll kill them. Ghost Kick had already rushed out when he heard the news. He nodded and said, don't go too far. Be careful of luring the tiger away from the mountain. Less than 5 minutes after Xin Mange left, a figure appeared in the courtyard. He stared at Ghost Kick and sneered. You're a smart person. However, you're definitely going to die today. Hong Long, he launched a punch at Ghost Kick. Die. Ghost Kick met his opponent's punch with a kick. The man took a few steps back and stood there with a half smile. You're just a transcendent state cultivator. How dare you come here and cause trouble? Go to hell. Ghost Kick was overjoyed. Suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his chest. It was as if a steel knife had stabbed into his chest. Then he saw a silk-like worm crawling out from his chest. His body stiffened and he blacked out on the ground. Idiot. The man smiled triumphantly. He put away the worm and approached Huang Linger. Come with me. Otherwise I'll kill you. Ling Er, get into the villa now. Yi Ziwei stepped forward and shielded Huang Linger behind her. Little girl, come with me. Otherwise I'll destroy all the herbs in your house and kill everyone. With a wave of his hand, a sharp flying knife flew towards the windcheam grass. No. Huang Linger saw that the knife was aimed at the windcheam grass that Jiang Tian valued the most. If it hit the windcheam grass, it would definitely be destroyed. She threw herself at the windcheam grass without hesitation. Huang Ling immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and the windcheam grass was immediately stained with blood. Seeing that the Winqing grass was fine, a happy smile appeared on her face and she fainted. Ling'er. Yiziwei saw her fall and failed to stop her. In the blink of an eye, she saw that there was a flying knife in her back. Fresh blood was gushing out. She screamed and rushed over. You're hurt. Don't die. The man forced Yiziwei back with 2 flying daggers and hurriedly picked up Huang Linger. His body shot into the air like an arrow and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yiziwei's cultivation was only at the peak of iron body. She was no match for this man. She quickly called Zhao Xueqing and said, Qing'er, bad news. Someone kidnapped Huang Linger. Zhonghai Jinxian Hotel. The sky was bright. Zhang Yilin finished her breakfast. She pulled her suitcase and knocked on Jiang Tian's door. She smiled and said, Brother, I'm going back to Yanjing. The task of the team has been completed. I should go back to Jinling too. Jiang Tian, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, got up and patted the little girl's head with a smile. I can't bear to leave you. Zhang Yilin lowered her head and said reluctantly, I miss you by my side all the time. Don't worry, I'll go to Yanjing to see you soon. Jiang Tian pinched her face and comforted her softly. When the time comes, you can follow me and we'll be together every day. You must remember what you said. If you stand me up, I won't let you go. Pinky promise. Zhang Yilin looked at Jiang Tian expectantly. She stretched out her hand and stuck out her pinky finger. Sigh, so childish. I can't do anything to you. Jiang Tian smiled helplessly, but just like when they were young, he hooked her little finger with his little finger and pressed their thumbs together and pulled twice. Then brother, I'll go now. Zhang Yilin let go of Jiang Tian's hand. Her eyes were red again. The last few days with her brother were the happiest times in her 20 years. She was reluctant to part with him now. Wait. Jiang Tian suddenly patted his own head and took out 10 jade essence magical items. He said, Here are some magical items that can protect your body and some that can nourish your spirit and gather qi. They can protect you and fourth uncle. Also, the jade essence talisman that you stole from the Zhang family is broken. Return it to your grandpa. I'm sure he won't punish you. Brother, where did you get so many treasures? Are these all made of chalcedony? Zhang Yilin was stunned when she saw them. She was a top student in archaeology and often excavated ancient tombs and ruins. Sometimes she would work with Gu Baixian to repair antiques and relics. She could tell at a glance that these were all jade essence. Not to mention carving them into magical items. Just a piece of jade essence was worth far more than the so-called emperor glass jade. It would cost at least tens of millions to buy. Jade essence was the essence of jade and was extremely rare. Even if you had the money, you might not be able to buy it. These are jade essence. I made them myself. Jiang Tian smiled. He used a red string to tie a protective jade essence talisman, a jade essence talisman and a qi gathering talisman. He hung them around Zhang Yilin's neck. This is too valuable. I can't accept it. Zhang Yilin waved her hand in panic. She grabbed the jade essence talisman with her other hand and was about to return it to Jiang Tian. The moment the jade essence talisman was hung around her neck, Zhang Yilin felt refreshed and energized. It was already late winter, but she felt warm all over. It was as if there was a heater hanging around her neck. She immediately knew that this was a real magical item. It was definitely much better than her grandfather's jade essence talisman. According to her family, her grandfather had spent more than 100 million to buy the jade essence talisman. Moreover, her grandfather had begged a few times before he could buy it. It was clear how valuable her cousin's gift was. This is nothing. I told you to wear it, so you wear it. Jiang Tian pinched her soft little face and stopped her hand from taking the jade essence. He did not take it to heart. He had collected at least 200 pieces of jade essence from the Chinese Society of Singapore and the Cherry Blossom Society. In the eyes of others, this item was priceless. However, in Jiang Tian's eyes, it was nothing more than a toy. Moreover, to Jiang Tian, Zhang Yilin was like his own little sister. Not to mention that he already had a lot. Even if he only had a single piece of jade marrow, Jiang Tian would still give it to her. Chapter 466. Brother, you're so nice. Zhang Yilin suddenly stepped forward and hugged Jiang Tian. She buried her small head in Jiang Tian's neck, tears rolling down her cheeks. These were tears of joy. She felt warm in her heart and was extremely touched. There was also an indescribable sense of security. Sigh, her brother had finally recovered. He had become so capable, so powerful, and loved her so much. Her silent sacrifice and fear, all these years of dancing with the wolves, were all worth it. Jiang Tian sent Zhang Yilan and Gu Baixian to the airport taxi before returning to the hotel. At this time his cell phone rang. It was a WeChat message from Zhang Yilan. Brother, we don't need that 10 billion. I only kept 50 million, which is enough to improve my family's situation. I've transferred the rest of the money to your bank card. The Medicine King Group is expanding rapidly and you need the money more. As for how I know your bank card number, it's because I used your bank card to buy clothes. Brother, I'm looking forward to you coming to Yanjing and letting Grandpa and Uncle see what you look like now. This girl. Jiang Tian looked at the bank on his mobile phone. The money was indeed transferred back. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. However, staying in the room, his heart felt a little empty and a little uneasy. He immediately checked out and planned to return to Jinling. At this time, Jiang Tian's cell phone rang. It was Zhao Xueqing. Jiang Tian quickly pressed the answer button. Qing'e, do you miss your husband? I'll go back right away. Jiang Tian, I'm sorry, Qing'e said with a sobbing tone. She looked very sad. What happened? Qing'e, don't cry. Jiang Tian's heart suddenly tightened. Huang Linger, she was kidnapped. Old Ghost was also killed. Zhao Xueqing said while choking with sobs. What? Who did it? When Jiang Tian heard this, a sharp killing intent bloomed in his eyes, and a surging wave of air surged out. Boom. All the glass in the room's windows shattered into pieces, fluttering in the air like butterflies. The attendant who was inspecting the room was so shocked that he took a step back and cried out, Sir, what's wrong? Who dares to touch my people? He's courting death. Jiang Tian stepped on the flying sword and turned into a stream of light. He passed through the window and shot into the sky, disappearing into the horizon. Is this a human or a ghost? Seeing this shocking scene, the waiter was so scared that he fell to the ground and almost peed his pants. An hour later, Jiang Tian stepped onto his flying sword and arrived above Mount Fulong. He immediately discovered that Mount Fulong's array had been completely destroyed. Many of the arcane artifact materials seemed to have been eaten by worms. There were holes everywhere and all of them had rotted away. The formation had already lost 70 to 80% of its power. Zoosh. Jiang Tian's face suddenly darkened. He landed in the courtyard and Zhao Xueqing, Yi Ziwei and Xin Mange quickly came to greet him. This morning I woke up early and was chatting with Ling, when 8 people suddenly rushed in. Yi Ziwei said. Before they could do anything, Mange discovered them and immediately came out. But they ran out immediately and Xin Mange chased after them. Now that I think about it, I was tricked by those people to lure me away from my base. Xin Mange said with a serious face. Those people were so fast that they could have shaken me off. But they purposely left me hanging and let me chase for 10 kilometers before they suddenly disappeared. You're already at the transcendent stage. Are their cultivation levels higher than yours? Jiang Tian frowned. Thump. Xin Mange knelt on the ground and said, their cultivation levels should be higher than mine. I didn't do my job well. Please punish me, master. You've done your best, Jiang Tian said expressionlessly, but Xin Mange did not dare to get up. She just knelt on the ground and wiped her tears. After Xin Mange left, another person immediately appeared and kicked the ghost foot to death with a type of worm. Yi Ziwei said, I felt that it was dangerous, so I quickly crushed the array pestle you gave me. But to my surprise, the Mount Fulong's array did not move. Jiang Tian raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. A piece of formation chalcedony, which was full of holes, broke through the soil and flew out of the ground, landing in his hand. He took out a worm that looked like a rice worm from one of the holes. He sighed and said, the enemy's plan is very deep. They must have used this worm called Jade Devouring Worm to devour the chalcedony a month ago. Yi Ziwei finally understood. She nodded and said, then that person forced Huang Linger to go with him. I protected Huang Linger, but that person said that he wanted to destroy all the bluebells. He said that he would use a flying knife to cut down the biggest one. Then Huang Linger jumped on the bluebell grass and was stabbed in the heart. She vomited blood and fainted. That person did not kill me. He carried Huang Linger and ran away. Only then did I remember to call Qing'e over. Ling, I'm sorry." Jiang Tian stared at the bluebell grass in a daze. The blood stains on it were still very clear. Hot tears rolled down his cheeks. Yiziwei glanced at Zhou Xian. She was a little hesitant, but she still said in the end, "Ling valued this bluebell grass a lot, but I did not expect that she would risk her life for that bluebell grass. That night I was building the treasure house and array at the place you told me about. I was not at the Fulong Mountain Villa. I did not expect. I'm sorry. I did not protect Ling well." Before Zhao Xueqing finished speaking, tears flowed out. "Ling, in my previous life I let you down, hurt you, lied to you and owed you. In this life I let you down, hurt you, lied to you and owed you even more. I can't even protect the woman I love. What's the use of me being reborn? What kind of cultivation is there left for me to cultivate?" Jiang Tian's face had already turned green. His body trembled uncontrollably and his fists were clenched tightly. Scenes of his past life with Huang Linger uncontrollably appeared in front of his eyes. He remembered how gentle and considerate Huang Linger was in his previous life. She was obedient and sensible. He remembered that when he saw her again in this life, her resentment and sadness, her hope and anticipation. He remembered that night in this life when he took away Huang Linger's memories. Ling cried and begged him not to take away her memories. He remembered that even if he took away her memories, she still loved him deeply in her subconscious. In order to protect that bluebell grass, she did not hesitate to lose her life. His heart hurt as if it was being cut by a knife. In the next moment his heart shattered into pieces, scattering and dancing in the air like petals. Pain. The heart-piercing pain, the pain of being cut by a knife, spread throughout his body. It was as if steel needles were piercing into his bones. It was as if his bones were being scraped, as if his skin was being flayed, as if his tendons were being pulled out. The pain was so intense that it was like heaven and earth. No. Jiang Tian tried his best to remain calm, but he still spat out a mouthful of blood. His body swayed and he almost fell to the ground. No. Why did you do this to her? He was questioning the culprit behind this and he was also questioning himself. Why did he let her down? Why was he so indecisive? Why did he not dare to accept her feelings? He sobbed softly as if he was a helpless child. No. His voice turned into an angry roar. It was as if he was unwilling to give up. No. Jiang Tian roared into the sky. Blood spurted out from his mouth. It was as if he was going to tear the sky apart. Jiang Tian, you have to be strong. You are the pride of the Jiang family. You are the pillar of the Jiang family. You can't fall. Yi Ziwei understood the torment in Jiang Tian's heart. Tears welled up in her eyes as she supported Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian forced himself to calm down. He asked dejectedly, "Qing'e, who did this? Do you have any clues?" "After I arrived, I searched the entire Jinlin city. However, the culprit has already escaped. Maybe they have some hidden techniques. Now we are waiting for the results of the police investigation." Zhao Xueqing said tearfully. "I'm afraid it's useless." Jiang Tian shook his head. It was too easy for a few transcendent masters to escape the police's surveillance. Suddenly he frowned and said, "Sister Ziwei, you just said that the culprit killed the ghost kick with a worm? What's the specific situation?" Yi Ziwei explained in detail and comforted him. "Oh right, that person panicked when he saw that Ling was injured. I think she might not be dead. I understand now. They probably want to use Huang Linger as a furnace. Also, this culprit is proficient in the art of venomous insects." Jiang Tian frowned and pondered. Once he calmed down, his thoughts became clear. "Inform all the members of the Heavenly Alliance about this immediately. Ask them to find out who did this. Order them to gather in Jinlin City immediately. I will find this group of bastards even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground and search the entire world." Hearing Master Kang's summons, many members of the Heavenly Alliance arrived in Jinlin City within a few hours. "Master Kang, we don't need to investigate this matter anymore. Based on the clues we have now, I am sure that the culprit is the Gu God sect." Immortal Hong Yi stepped forward and bowed. "This little white worm is called Jade Devouring Worm. It can devour the essence of jade and is used to break Dharma artifacts and Dharma arrays. In this world only the Gu God sect can use them. 60 years ago, they used these insects to destroy the protective array of the Yuan family in the northwest. killing the entire Yuan family. Besides, rumor has it that the Gu God sect is good at using yin to nourish yang. They use women as furnaces to break through and cultivate. Recently, many young girls with special physiques have been missing in the Lingnan area. I think they are the culprit. The Gu God sect. Jiang Tian's face darkened. He said coldly, "Where is the Gu God sect? Do any of you know?" Everyone shook their heads. Immortal Hong Yi said seriously, "The Gu God sect is considered a hidden sect. Their whereabouts are secretive and few people know about them. It is said that they are in the depths of the 100,000 mountains of Miaojiang. However, no one knows their exact location except for the members of the Gu God sect. That is Wu Yingxiong's territory. Feilong, contact him." Jiang Tian looked at Wei Feilong and said, "Yes." Wei Feilong quickly dialed Wu Yingxiong's number and handed the phone to Jiang Tian. This junior pays his respects to Grandmaster Jiang from afar. "It's been a long time since we last met. I heard that Grandmaster Jiang's strength has increased, and your name has shaken the entire East Ocean." Wu Yingxiong's tone was full of flattery and even fear. Chapter 467. Although the news of Jiang Tian defeating the 28-man mixed brigade was covered up by the Japanese authorities, the news of Jiang Tian defeating the Japanese had spread to the entire Wuxia martial arts world. Killing Miyamoto Genichi was enough to make many big shots in the martial arts world tremble in fear. "Cut the crap, do you know where the Gu God sect is?" Jiang Tian was too lazy to talk nonsense and asked directly. "The Gu God sect," Wu Yingxiong said in surprise. "Master Kong, although I'm quite famous in the southwest, the Gu God sect is a mysterious hidden sect. I've never met them before. I'll give you one day to find out the exact location of the Gu God sect. Otherwise I'll kill all of you." Jiang Tian hung up the phone and said coldly, "Everyone from the Heaven Alliance, follow me to the southwest. We'll destroy the Gu God sect." "Yes, Master Kong." Everyone responded in unison. Their killing intent soared and their battle intent surged like the tide. The Gu God sect was the strongest of the 6 major heretical sects in China. They were stronger than the House of Shadow Blight and the Ghost Witch sect. They had a history of over 1,000 years and their foundation was immeasurably deep. In the past, people like Hu Qingtian, Zhao Yuankun, Wei Feilong, Hong Yi and the others, even if they were martial arts experts, did not have the courage and strength to go against this kind of hidden sect. But now with Jiang Tian leading them, they had nothing to fear. They were confident that they could destroy 10 Gu God sects, let alone one. "Honey, I'll go with you. I didn't take good care of Ling. This time I'll get her back." Zhao Xueqing spoke softly. Her clear eyes glistened with tears and her gaze was filled with guilt and pleading. "Master, I'll go with you." Sasaki Haisha also said with murderous intent. Jiang Tian patted Qing'er's hand and comforted her. "Qing'er, you don't have to blame yourself. The real reason Huang Linger was kidnapped is because of her innate Yi-Wood spiritual body. Even if you don't bring her to the Jiang family, she will still be discovered and kidnapped." But Qing'er's tears rolled down. She blamed herself too much. If she didn't save Huang Linger, she wouldn't be able to live in peace for the rest of her life. "Qing'er, listen to me. Now that the Heavenly Alliance has been mobilized, Jinling is unprecedentedly empty. We can't afford any mistakes," Jiang Tian said earnestly. He then looked at Sasaki and Haisha and said, "Haisha, you also stay in Jinling and help Matriarch." "Hubby, I'll listen to you." Zhao Xueqing wiped her tears and said firmly, "Don't worry. I promise that as long as I'm here, Jinling won't suffer any losses." Yi Ziwei had already prepared a private plane. The Heavenly Alliance members boarded the private plane and went straight to Kun City, the provincial capital of Dianan. Jiang Tian stepped on the flying sword and went ahead first. However, 3 hours later Jiang Tian arrived. As the capital of Dianan province, Kun City covered a large area. It was spring all year round and hundreds of flowers bloomed. It was a famous metropolis in the country with a population of millions. Even so, Jiang Tian used his divine sense to find Wu Yingxiong's location in less than 10 minutes. The Wu residence was very famous. It was located in the southern suburbs of Kun City and occupied an area of 300 acres. It even covered a natural lake. Wu Yingxiong was like a local tyrant in Kun City. He was free and unfettered and his words were law. Sir, do you have an appointment or a visiting card? If not, you're not allowed to enter. Jiang Tian landed and walked to the door. A few strong men guarding the door immediately stood up and stopped him. Tell your Mr. Wu that an old friend named Jiang from Jinling is here to visit. Jiang Tian said lightly. No appointment? I'm sorry, you're not allowed to enter. Old Mr. Wu, do you think that anyone can meet him? The leader of the strong men looked arrogant. When he blinked, a faint light flashed in his eyes. He had achieved phenomenal success in his internal force cultivation. Please inform your Mr. Wu. Jiang Tian's heart was burning with anxiety. He forcefully suppressed his anger and lightly patted the stone lion by the door. Kaboom! Crack! The stone lion was as tall as a man and made of high-quality granite. However, Jiang Tian's casual pat shattered it like a piece of tofu. Oh my God! Many of the guards were so scared that they trembled and almost fell to the ground. The leader was even more frightened. He took a few steps back and bowed. Mr. Jiang, please wait for a moment. I will inform the Mr. Wu now. Then he ran into the residence in a hurry. Meanwhile, in the living room of the Wu residence, there were 5 people sitting around a round table, surrounded by a group of disciples. These 5 people all had extraordinary temperaments. There were men and women, old and young. Wu Yingxiong, who had a worried expression, was among them. Wu Yingxiong's cultivation level was only average among them. The most powerful one among them was an old man with white hair and a white beard. Behind the old man stood the young sorcerer god. He was wearing a top hat and a mandarin jacket. He looked like a young master from a wealthy family. Wu Yingxiong and the other 4 looked at him with great respect. He was the sect lord of the ghost sorcerer sect. Wu Yingxiong, a girl from Jinling has gone missing. Why did you call us here? Do you think we have too much time on our hands? A middle-aged woman was sitting in the middle of the room. Her face was covered with a black veil. She wore a translucent palace dress that exposed her fair bosom. Despite her age, she was still very attractive. However, everyone was wary of her because she was the sect lord of the House of Shadow Blight, Hua Wanfeng. The 5 people sitting in the room were all influential figures. They were the sect lords of the House of Shadow Blight and the Ghost Sorcerer sect, and the Wu family, Yun family and Qin family. If the 5 of them worked together, they could rule the entire southeastern region. Wu Yingxiong said helplessly, I don't want to be a busybody, but please help me. We have been helping each other for a long time. I don't have the time to look for it. Yun Yen sneered and said, no one knows where the Gu God sect is. The 100,000 mountains of Miaojiang are full of towering mountains and lofty ridges. It's not like you don't know how complicated the terrain is. There are many places that even the geological survey team has not been to. You think we can find the Gu God sect in one day? Are you kidding me? Lord Yun, the girl's friend, is too powerful. We can't afford to offend him. Wu Yingxiong smiled wryly and said, he said that if we don't find the Gu God sect in one day, we will all die. In fact, Jiang Tian had said that he was the only one who could answer the question. But now he had no choice but to drag a few of them down with him. Besides, if he didn't use Kong Teichu to scare them, they might not be willing to help him. Who is so arrogant? Qin Xinyu frowned and said with disdain, destroy the 2 factions and 3 major clans in the southwest region? Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? I say, old Wu, you used to be so arrogant. Why are you getting more and more cowardly now? Hee Qin Xinyu, don't make fun of me. If I tell you his name, you will be even more cowardly than me. Wu Yingxiong sneered. Who is it? Tell me. Qin Xinyu casually picked up the teacup and took a sip, then asked with a smile. Old Wu's pukerty was not bad. He wanted to take a few bags with him. This person has a public identity. He is the young master of the Jinling Medicine King group. He is a college classmate of the kidnapped girl Huang Linger. You people live in seclusion in the countryside, so you might not know, but you must have heard of another name. Wu Yingxiong paused and said solemnly, his name is Kongti. Plang. As soon as he said this, Qin Xinyu's hand suddenly trembled. The teacup fell onto his thigh and rolled to the ground, shattering into pieces. He didn't even notice the boiling hot tea splashing onto his leg. What? Kongti? Everyone present exclaimed in unison, and their expressions changed drastically. Even the great Magus's face darkened. He said in a deep voice, Brother Wu, this is a serious matter. Don't joke about it. Kong Teichu, the leader of the Heavenly Alliance, the #1 grandmaster on the divine roll in Wuxia. Even the 3 major clans and 2 major clans in the southwest region had heard of Kong Teichu's name. That was a valiant existence that dominated the East Ocean and even killed the old sword god palace's origin one. Is this really Kong Teichu's order? Yunyan's face darkened as he felt uneasy. Others didn't know, but he knew that his son was cultivating in the Gu God sect. Moreover, Jiang Taichu was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If Jiang Taichu destroyed the Gu God sect, his son wouldn't be able to escape either. He had to find a way to inform his son of his whereabouts. Of course, Wu Yingxiong said helplessly. You are all important figures. If it weren't for Master Kang's order, I wouldn't have bothered you. When will Kong Teichu come? Qin Xingyu asked anxiously. He wanted to inform his family and run for their lives. It was impossible to find the Gu God sect in one day. If Kong Teichu destroyed the entire sect, no one would be able to stop him. It is Kong Teichu. The great magus shook his head and heaved a sigh. Then he looked to Yunyan and said with furrowed brows, Yunyan, you sent your son to the Gu God sect. You should know where they are, right? Don't hide it anymore. Hurry up and say it. Yunyan pulled a long face and pondered for a while. Great magus, please don't make it difficult for me. I don't want to offend you. Yunyan, I didn't know that your son had joined the Gu God sect. No wonder he had improved so quickly. Yunyan, for everyone's sake you should tell us now. Otherwise we won't be able to survive. Everyone hurriedly tried to persuade him, looking anxious. Among them the great magus was the most powerful. However, he had only reached the peak of the Dao-reaching level and was far from reaching the immortal state. Meanwhile, Kong Teichu had defeated Miyamoto Geniki and the Sakura Society. Even Qiao Bin and Wang Chongyan were no match for him. They were no match for him. A hint of bitterness flashed across Yunyan's old face. He suddenly stood up and said coldly, Everyone, you all know how vicious the Gu God sect is. If I tell them the location of the Gu God sect and bring trouble to them, do you all think my son can still live? I can't push my son into the fire pit. Besides, the Gu God sect is a powerful sect. What is the chance of Kong Teichu winning? If he dies, do you think the Gu God sect will let us go? I hope all of you will reconsider your actions and not make things difficult for me. Otherwise, let's fight. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.